I'm here at last. Fuck me. Yes. I've just noticed some of the comments there. What can I say? What can I friggin' say? Yes. It actually, I had to reboot my machine because it's been out of date for a while, and then it did one reboot and then it required to do an additional reboot. So I'm sitting there going, playing with my fingers, go, fuck. Yes. So, oops, I should have done this last night. Just forgot about it. Completely fucking disorganized. Yeah, I know. I've been running around like a chook with my head cut off trying to sort things in the last minute or whatever. Yep. G'day, Mandy. Yes, it's a bit of a... Usual cretins are here, are they? Doesn't surprise me. Does that include you as well? G'day, Cynthia. And that was my delay, and it went slightly over. I lied. It wasn't 5 minutes. Yes, amateur hour. Yes, bloody amateur. Yeah, I know. These fucking amateurs get on YouTube. They think they basically can run a YouTube channel. Absolutely hopeless. Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, very true. Very true. And Lukey's here. Greetings, T2. Good to see you. See, T2's very nice to me. It's not going to happen with you, is it? Yeah. Have to get the nurse to put on a glove and do something nasty to you. Love between those two. Just simple acknowledgement. Is it? I need to do another week to become a proper habit. You need 3 weeks to produce a proper habit. So I'll have to do it next week as well, just to basically, do it properly. Yes, what can one say? Yes, you mean tools? That's what you're surrounded by, tools. Especially the T1 tool and the T2 tool. You read my mind. G'day, mate. Good to see you. A lot of love there, mate, for you. A lot of love. I did. I actually brushed my hair. Can't you see? It doesn't actually seem as sort of flaky out there or sort of as long and all that. Yes. Got the sun coming in, as you can see on that side. No, sorry, that side. Yeah, because I'm actually, for one reason, even though that's, it's sort of my, don't worry, it's just a StreamYard thing, the way it actually orientates you. But yes, the sun's coming that way. That's why it's lighter on this side of the hair and darker on this. Yes. So I get good sun through here. If I'm over there in that other side room and all that, it literally can blind me. And when I do shift over there, I will have to basically pull the curtains because it'll be, really hard to basically. Here I'm sort of a bit further away from the window, so I do still get the sun coming through, but it doesn't blind me like in there it does. So I may have to put some sort of cover or like that because I still like a bit of natural sunlight to come in. Yeah. Anyway, it's a side issue. Yes. Yes, the rugged look. Yeah, been running around like a chook with my head cut off, so, the Tasmanian bush look. You know what I know where your dirty little mind is going. Tasmania looks like a bush. Yeah, I know where your dirty little mind is going. My razors are pretty basic. They're nothing spectacular. They got the clip on and clip out, but it's nothing, fancy and all that. It's a traditional razor where you clip the actual razors on and off, but it's nothing fancy in that regard. God. Well, you don't need one. You got feathers. Look in the mirror. That was at any second now. Oh God. Desperados, I'm here. The clocks are up. Tick, 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 tock, tick, tock. Yes, I know. Actually, I got up earlier today, but I should have got on and actually done the update and all that because I was watching a bit of Bart's you know sort of stream as well. So yes, I did do a bit of that. That's it. That's it. As long as we get here. Well, you don't even ask any questions. It's, I mean, comical questions. Yes, you do. You do pose comical sort of. Yes. G'day, Shell. He's our comedian from the West. He's a Western Australian, with exceptions for a couple. I stopped doing that, because it was taking too bloody long. I mean, you probably notice all the new ones that I'm doing now are just doing out of Zoom. The only problem is with Zoom, sometimes I do them and then I check them after and I realize I had one that I did 2 days ago. The audio was so bad, I just deleted it. It was on gall, like gallbladder and gall, stones and gall sludge and stuff like that. So it's a new one. It's looking at it from a very different angle. I'm not looking at it what everybody else sort of looks at the downstream. So they're actually naturopaths are more involved, a bit like MDs. The NDs, or the naturopathic doctors, they're called NDs, as many of you know. They're more focused on things like the downstream things, like, okay, we'll create supplements with bile salts, the enzymes, and stuff like that. And there's all this sort of gall stone flushes on the internet. They sort of, some people get a bit of relief from them, and it's a hit and miss in a sense, but they don't really work that well, and they don't really work because they're not dealing with the underlying problems, you know. So in that regard, yes, and he's looking forward to the taurine video, Bird Brain. Yes, actually, taurine plays a role with sorting out liver problems and sorting out gallstone and gallbladder issues as well. So there is a video that I did start taping it last night, but I realized I looked at the time and go, oh shit. So I'm going to do it tonight, and I will release that because a lot of people have asked me about it, and it will go into, the real issues and the reason why certain people get more, and women postmenopausal tend to be more susceptible, and the reasons for it. So there's a lot of the hormonal side that is playing a role. There's a methylation side. There's a whole lot of things that are intersecting, and they all have to be dealt with in a certain way to fix these problems. So yes, that will be, because a lot of people have asked me. There's a lot of questions I've gone through. I still haven't answered everyone because there's a big backlog. And what I'm trying to do is now trying to do some videos just to provide a background. So it's a bit like I did with the copper, the zinc, and all that sort of stuff. I'm doing like a 1 and 2. So 1, explaining everything about it. Then 2, a sort of a protocol. Do this to deal with it, sort of thing. So that will be the gallstone thing, blah blah, that will be happening. And then I've got a couple of others that I want to do as well, of common things that people ask me or email me, to sort of reduce the email load that I've got, so I've got more free time then to do more videos than answering people's emails, which can take a bit of time because I don't like giving people half answers or comprehensive, and that takes time. So it's better to just do some of these videos and basically nip that issue in the bud by providing people with solutions, practical solutions, and some understanding why these things happen. So yeah, there's a bit of that's going to come. So I've refocused my attention to sort of trying to deal with people's direct problems. So because I don't do consultancies, I don't do any of that sort of stuff. So it's easier for me to do a video and say, which would be the equivalent of doing a consultancy nearly, but this is how you do it, sort of thing. Something you won't get from others because obviously they are selling their time or in that regard. So yeah, I've got a day job, so not a practical thing for me in that regard. Yeah, it does. Yeah, a lot of, and especially when you don't have the free time. I mean, I've been quite involved this week with a couple of personal things related to family, not me directly, but they've taken up my time. Also, I mean, even yesterday I was talking to my brother-in-law about a couple of issues and trying to resolve it, and trying to get I need to call my sister tonight and remind her to basically get certain documentation sorted. But that's another issue. It's a sort of a nagging thing between me and her anyway. So yeah, so there's a couple of things that there are being sorted out in my personal life that with family that are taking my time as well. Other work-related things, sort of people going and in the new year, and people needing to be trained up so they can take over some of their tasks. And yeah, so I'm under the gun on a lot of fronts. So it really makes it hard. So like last time, I had a bit of free time, and I just went hammered a couple in the evening, got them out of the way, and I sort of neglected the emails. And sort of I will try and actually focus, and then whatever's left of the emails, then I'll deal with them where it may not be practical to do a specific video because it may be too specific to their requirements. So I'll just have to triage the message, so to speak. So yeah, a bit of that as well. So yes. Nah, not today. been doing plenty of glitch ironing on a whole lot of fronts. So keeping me very busy in that regard. And yeah, I don't have to go around to Dad's today, which is good. So he's doing his own thing, but I will see him through the week. Need to go and do a couple of things for him as well. And also, but I will be going after the stream with one of my neighbours shopping. Exactly. So yeah, we're going for a walk, and because I usually go for a walk after the streams just to clear my head and all that. And she said, well, I'll join you on the walk and we'll go, because I'm going in a certain direction past a certain outlet. And so, yeah, doing it together. Good to have company. Did my long walk yesterday with my good friend Sean and his son. So, yeah, that was a nice long walk that we did. Went down to Salamanca as well. So that was good getting down there. Meeting up with a couple of friends and people like that and seeing how it's going. They are going to expand the markets in Salamanca for anyone interested from next week. They've actually moved the time down to from 1 o'clock where it was to 3 o'clock. So it'll be like the old time frame. And this for my Tasmanian audience. And on top of that, the borders will be opening up in November, so hopefully we'll get a few thousand tourists down here from the mainland that'll want to get away from there and come down here. So that should help liven up the markets. But the original Salamanca market isn't running at the moment. It's a new type Hobart type market, which they're running, which is a sort of a cut down version. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway. Stallholders are not completely happy, but shit happens. Anyway. Yes, you need some other sort of probing, but we won't go into that. Too private. That's it. Exactly. Some injectable ones. They'll work for T1. Oh, God. That's a thing that I could do. I've got the capacity to do. I know how to. But not a cow. I've done goats. Yes, and they're much harder to actually milk, I can tell you. Oops. Thank you, StreamYard, for losing my spot. Anyway, I better move through these because before StreamYard does something funny to me. And keep on going, milking the cow for his ice cream company, perhaps. That sounds good. I actually had ice cream yesterday, as you know. Every Saturday I have ice cream. I actually went and bought some really nice scallops, so a kilo of scallops. And these are local scallops from Margate. So, and we cooked those yesterday, a couple of steaks. Really nice. Really, really nice. So had a beautiful meal with both Sean and his son, Luca. So that was talked a bit of shit, as we normally do in that regard as well. G'day, Deborah. Good to see you. Okay, refresh. Don't tempt me. You should know, Shell. Do not tempt me. That's fraught with danger. Here, look. I brushed it. But I need to cut it again. Fuck it. It's starting to get long again. And I'm not like working from home. Before I was working from home, I didn't really care. I just let it grow. But yeah, I have to cut back on the zinc. Zinc-rich foods. Give the oysters a bit of a miss as well. Actually, I do need to go down and get some some copper-rich foods, like a bit of calamari squid and, maybe a bit of octopus as well. So, yes. G'day. Good to see Floofy here. Yum. Yum about what? Blah, 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 blah. Finished. Just no. Completely confused. Yes, I am. I can't help myself. I am a tease. Yes. Thanks, Phil. Yes. Oh, God. Here they go. Get the trolls going. Good to see you, Daniel. Sometime I checked the video after, and there is some audio is missing or mistakes. Look, it does happen. The problem with live stream services, whether it's StreamYard, whether it's Zoom, whether it's any of these, is that you're actually connecting to an external server, transferring the information and back again. And then and so I'm at the mercy of the actual, because it's not localized. I could actually set it up localized using OBS and a whole lot of other things and all that. The problem is that's a lot of setup and a lot of hassle and all that. And this is just easier, simple as that. But it does have issues. Unfortunately, nothing's perfect in this world. But as you know, that's the reason why I upgraded my service by an extra 10. What was it, 10 or 20 bucks? I can't remember now. I think it was. Anyway. No, it is 20. Yeah, it is 20 per month. So basically, it's costing me, just to basically get better internet upload in that regard. So the sacrifices I make for you guys for free. But, unfortunately, these services also have their downside. What can you do? So, yes. Yep, that is coming. That will be, that's going to be next month. I'm going to do it. That's going to be a comprehensive one. I may do it in a couple of parts, like focus on taurine as part of the heart, as part of the brain, and then looking at other aspects in other organs and other systems. So, because taurine affects so many pathways in the body, it's not a joke. It's just, yeah. So it's you can never really cover taurine with one video. Let's put it that way. Each time I think that I know everything about taurine, I come across another study or another, angle of the importance of taurine. And it does actually decline with age. After 40 in particular, you get the initial decline, and then after 50, you get additional decline. And then especially after 65, you get a marked reduction in taurine synthesis in our bodies. And that's a problem, because it affects a lot of different functions in our bodies, and a lot of ailments go up in that. And in particular, when people are doing a lot of species inappropriate things and a lot of other things, it sort of exacerbates those problems, where a younger person can do a number of things, but they're producing enough taurine to mitigate those problems. And then when you get into that older age bracket, the same activity can be extremely deleterious, So, and even a species appropriate diet, going to a species appropriate diet after 65, yes, it can reduce the severity but it can't mitigate a lot of the previous damage that you've already done on inappropriate diets. It's not like somebody who's been a multi-generational Inuit or Maasai who's lived eating animal foods from the time that he or she was born to the time he or she will pass away. So that is a completely different person. The majority of people that come to any of these YouTube sites nowadays have already been damaged quite severely from a lot of past lifestyle choices. And, the reality is there's the interventions. There are some general parameters in terms of interventions, but then there's going to be some specific, so, it's not an easy thing. Let's put it that way, And I mean, taurine plays a big role in neurological stuff. It plays a big role, in these sort of areas, like even clearing beta amyloid, which I've actually mentioned before. So dementia and stuff like that. So, I mean, what's the high source? It's red meats. It's meats. And certain seafood are very high in taurine. So what aren't we eating enough of? Seafood and meats. And that is why as we age and we're not biosynthesizing enough, the mental decline is more rapid. Again, phosphatidylserine, phosphatidylcholine, all these sort of things. These are the importance. I mean, these people talk about, take this nutraceutical, poison yourself with this, plant compound. I'm going, no, what you really fucking need and your body really needs is basically high quality nutrition. You need phospholipids. You're going to get them in organ meats and you're going to get them in eggs. That's where you're going to get phospholipids, in high concentrations, and they will help your brain because your brain is starving for phospholipids. And I mean, I've actually remember that when I talked about that Israeli study, phosphatidylserine, where they were using that and phospholipids and all that, and basically switching off those, dementia type genes that these people had. These people weren't just lifestyle dementia. They had genetic dementia, which is a completely different animal. And still, when you eat a species appropriate diet and get these sort of things, choline, taurine, serine, and in the phospholipid combinations from these animal sources, you will repair and fix this tissue and silence these genes. That's the real magic, the animal foods. It's not basically all these plant compounds and all that. They give you a hormetic effect, but as I said, you can get a hormesis from anything: exercising, fasting, stressing yourself by wanking yourself, rubbing yourself or whatever profusely. So that will actually give you a bit of a hormetic effect. There's a lot of hormesis by stressing your body in different ways. You don't need to we've got enough. We've got too many hormesis in our environment. EMFs, blue light, you name it, we've got it. We don't need to add more. There's no benefit. There are diminishing returns when you add too much. Too little, if you put yourself in a bubble and lock yourself in a Faraday cage and have no contact with the world, that also is a problem. Too little, like too little exposure to bacteria or whatever, too little or too much is a problem. So we get enough hormesis. And a lot of us have got stresses in our bodies and a number of things. We don't need to add more. These people are selling product or promoting stuff. Unnecessary. Okay. Love the short videos, Harry. Well done. And thank you. You're welcome. Yep. Look, sometimes it's easy to, with certain subjects, you can do a quick, easy video. But with some things, it can be drawn out. And that's why I'm thinking, should I do like part 1 and part 2? Sometimes it's hard because I think about it and I go, am I truly representing something properly by doing too many? Because sometimes you do one, people listen to something, and then by the time they listen to the next one, part 2, they may have missed the nuance, that's what worries me as well. So yeah, I know, pathetic, isn't it? Um, yes, it's my neurotic brain. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm trying to sort of, how do I deliver things to get the best bang for your buck, so to speak. Yeah, is the sort of thing. Don't lose my spot. Don't lose my spot. Yes, we know what Kit Kat. Thank you, Cynthia. That's what I always do. I always prioritize my life and my family's life as well. So they've got issues. They take up my time as well, and so do my friends with the like one-to-one they consult with me over a meal or just having, so in that way. Not yet, not yet. Still got plenty of things to do. Yeah, look, a lot of things. I mean, we had a lot of concerns. We had you know, the so-called pandemic and all that sort of stuff. There was a lot of issues. A lot of people's lives were turned upside down. Initially, I was concerned. I thought it would be a 1918 type event, and that killed a lot of people, a lot of young people. It was very much damaging to the society in that regard. But this was just basically, it was basically a flu season on slight steroids, slight. So it wasn't severe enough to basically, the overkill and the over things that we've done. When it comes to masks, I'm sort of, I think if you don't have an ailment, if you don't have the thing, you don't need to wear a mask. It's not going to protect you unless you're in one of those bubble suits, like the virologists that go into labs wear. That's the only thing that's going to protect you. But if you've got the condition, you've actually picked it up, or you don't feel that well, it's actually good to wear a mask, not for yourself, but for others, because it means you're going to be less viral load is going to be coming out of you in that early period, which means you're going to be protecting other people who may be vulnerable. That's where the mask helps, because you give them less of a viral load. And if they get less of a viral load, their body's got a better chance in that regard. But really now with the new information coming out, what is really annoying me is not enough information is coming out in terms of vitamin D and its importance. And, I haven't seen a lot of citations of the Spanish study that actually showed that high dose vitamin D in the early part of the condition, it was a randomized control study, and actually showed quite clearly that these people were able to get out of hospital without having to go into critical care. So why isn't this information getting out there? I mean, the US president has had his doses of vitamin D and all the zinc and everything else under the sun. Why aren't other people getting the same sort of treatment? It seems like, there is, I'm not trying to be conspiratorial, but it seems like the focus is on the vaccine because that can make certain people money. And less on dealing with this and the dislocation that it can create in the economy. The reality is this SARS-2 is going to be around for a long time. It doesn't mutate as fast as the common cold, which is a good thing. But at the same time, it's going to be around because it's got out now. It wasn't basically prevented, and it's got around the globe. And it means that seasonally, it will basically come around each season. It will basically slightly mutate and stay within a couple of people and continue moving around like the common cold does, in a sense. So we need to learn to live with it. And we need also to basically realize the importance when it comes to respiratory infections like the flu and like this SARS-2, that basically we need to be using, our brains and say, we need to basically up our vitamin D levels. And, people, we've had years and years of people eating inappropriately, putting too many seed oils into their skin. That's what burns them. And we need to basically, bring this out in the open and say the seed oils are the problem that are preventing people from getting out in the sun, because they burn easy, because they've incorporated this shit into their cell membranes. And these are the issues. We need to expose this whole thing, because what it's doing is it's damaging our economy, damaging people's lives. People have spent, decades and decades building up businesses or building up their lives, and then they've had them just trashed, and it's just basically the big end of town are being looked after, and they've basically just, appropriating everything in this crisis. So, and it really pisses me off that so many people's lives have been destroyed in that regard. I mean, initially when it came out, I was very scared, like all of us, and basically, but looked into it and realized it was a respiratory. So focus on the key things of zinc and vitamin D, as you know from the beginning. But then, after I realized it wasn't as dangerous, it wasn't a 1918 type epidemic, I'm going, why are we doing all this sort of stuff? Why are we going over the top? Ivor Cummings has done a lot of good videos on that. I congratulate him, because he's done a lot of good work exposing some of the pseudoscience in this area that's basically protecting certain vested interests. And that's what really is happening, unfortunately. But, hopefully people will see sanity and realize we need to basically start, moving out. And unfortunately, it's very hard for people, because they are really in a difficult space, and governments have got all sorts of legislation. And I'm not telling people to break the law. I comply with the law. If the government tells me I have to wear a mask to go out, I'm going to put a mask on. I'm not going to violate the law, because at the end of the day, I live in a democracy. We vote the politicians in, whether good or bad, and then basically they make decisions whether good or bad. What we need to do is expose the decisions. That's where the freedom of speech comes, where we basically expose these wrong decisions and say, these are why they're wrong. And this is what the damage, so we can have them kicked out of Parliament, so others can take over that can do a better job. That's how it works. That's the better way of working within the democracy. So I don't believe in basically sort of going out there and breaking the law and stuff like that. I know it pisses people off, and it does piss me off, but the thing is, breaking the law, two wrongs don't make a right, so to speak, in my book anyway. What you do with your life and what sort of, that's up to you. We're actually going now into summer. So we're in spring, we're going into summer. So the things should improve as vitamin D levels start edging up in the population in Australia. So things should get better. But, once we get back into winter, it's seasonal, we're going to have issues again and more nonsense. Probably the only thing a vaccine would do is basically get rid of the nonsense in that regard. But, yeah, it's not necessary, because respiratory issues can be dealt with high-dose vitamin D. And then you get it, you protect your immune system, you enhance your immune system, and you prevent any cytokine storm by regulating macrophage via vitamin D. And then basically you get the immunity and the antibodies, and you move on. It's a much, much healthier way and all that. Vaccines are important for certain things like polio and a number of other diseases that are basically can kill you, but we don't need to cover everything, and it is costly. It's cheaper basically just take bloody vitamin D or get out in the sun for respiratory issues. So, but we can't promote that, because we basically want to feed people kibble and seed oils damage their skin and all that, and then tell them you shouldn't be out in the sun, even though our ancestors were out in the sun continuously and midday persistent hunters. It's just fucking crazy, the world we live in. Anyway, I can say these sort of things and be complete, utter, in any way and blurt out and rant and whatever, because, not expecting to get anything from YouTube anyway. So fuck them. Scorpio? Who's a Scorpio? You're a Scorpio, are you? Yes. StreamYard, don't do this, Toby. Oh, shit. Where is my spot? Found it. What's your take on MS supplements? It sounds like a little like pseudo, or can it be helpful? I do take MSM supplements. Well, I don't really do at the moment. I did, and Dad still takes them. What they do is, when you eat, or you've had a lot of oxalate, I had a lot of oxalate dumping. When you've got a lot of oxalate in your system, or you produce oxalate to rid your system of things, what happens is you deplete sulfur quite a bit. So this is basically, taurine is also a sulfur amino acid, methionine. There are many sulfur amino acids, don't get me wrong, but this is a quick way of sulfonating quite well your body. So that's what I've promoted MSM as a supplement for people who are a low sulfur, have had a low sulfur diet for a very long time, as an early supplementation as they're coming into the carnivore diet in the early stages to sulfonate. Once you get into the rich variety of animal foods, and in particular, one of the best source of sulfur in the animal world is eggs. Eggs are very high in sulfur. That's why they've got that smelly taste. So, nowadays I usually get my sulfur from eggs in that regard. But I did before, when I had cardiovascular. I was fixing up my cardiovascular issues and trying to actually sulfonate my pericellular matrix within my body to get a better negative charge through. I did basically supplement. So it has its place, but it's not something that you really need. If you've been a carnivore for at least 2 years, you probably don't need it. You're probably getting enough sulfur rich amino acids in your diet, so it's probably superfluous. So it depends. It has its place when dealing with certain things. So, and it's nothing, and it's not pseudo. No, it's basically sulfonation is really important. It prevents the stickiness in your body as well by sulfonating the pericellular matrix, all those hairline structures around bacteria, viruses, or anything, not viruses, bacteria, protozoa, your endothelial cells, your lipoproteins, all that has got these little hairline structures, and they've got those glycans as well, and they get sulfonated. So you need sulfonation, and things that we do in our lifestyle can deplete our sulfur. So there's a lot of things like alcohol, and there's a lot of things that if you're living in an environment which your methylation is upregulated quite a bit because you've got a lot of toxins, poison, mold, or whatever, you will go through more sulfur. So there's a lot of reasons why it's a good thing to add into your diet. It depends on your circumstances. It's not it's not a sort of blanket thing. You must have sulfur in MSM sulfur. No, it's specific for certain ailments, conditions, and circumstances, as I've pointed out in the past on multiple occasions. So yes, hope that was a good enough answer. Harry, if there is a problem with IDO2 causing tryptophan to build up, can carnivore help? It sort of can. It sort of can. It depends on some of the genetics. I usually say to people, send me your genetics for me to check, because it's easier that way. I can actually check a number of pathways and see whether, because it can be a lot of different pathways that it can actually be interacting. It's not. See, this is the problem when we look at all the studies. We look at a sort of a very reductionist way, certain enzymatic pathways, and we go, oh, but in many cases, there's a lot of other things that are in play. So, it's much easier when somebody comes to me and says, I've got these genetics and all that, and I'm having these symptoms and all that. It's much easier then to work out because it's going to be slightly different and varied depending on the person. So, if you've got something specific, send me an email. If you have already, I'll eventually get to it. Did you mention a birthday further back? I didn't actually see it. If you did, happy birthday. Sorry, I missed it. Two Scorpios in a family. Scorpio fights, scorpion fights. The. I'm being stupid now. Yeah, okay. Back to the show. He's got his cheap treats waiting. I bet you do. Some kibble to peck on. You are? Crossbow. Yes. Happy birthday whenever that comes up. My dear feathered friend, happy birthday to you as well. What are your cheats? You don't want to know. Is there any mechanism by which obesity causes any disease? There can be people, for instance, that can be quite morbidly obese and still be metabolically healthy. So, and there can be people like tofis, which are very thin. A lot of Asians tend to be tofis and all that. A lot of Northern Europeans tend to have a lot of subcutaneous fat. So there's a difference between. But while a general traditional lifestyle, there can be people with slightly overweight, like I've talked about in the past, like some Russian women who consume a lot of potatoes and meat, and they become like big mamas, really big, quite a bit overweight, but very strong still and all that, and metabolically completely healthy. So in terms of, it's usually the type of fat deposition. That's really what it fundamentally is. Is it more subcutaneous or more visceral? If it's more visceral, you're going to have far more cytokines that are going to be produced from the visceral fat. So that's where the problem lies. The visceral fat is going to be driving disease way more. Fatty liver, stuff like that, fat droplets in the actual liver, so that's what's really driving it. But subcutaneous, sort of the big love handles and stuff like that, is not is less of a problem. But obviously, it can have an effect if you've got too much weight. It can have an effect on your bones, on your joints, especially if you're not getting good enough nutrition. So if you're, not getting enough of the fat soluble vitamins and a couple of other things and stuff like that, not getting enough salt and phosphorus and stuff like that, you can't support these tissues as well. So yes, as an indirect, because of the, your activities, sort of, you're going to have far more wear and tear when you move around compared to somebody who's lean. So there are a number of things that will exacerbate as a consequence of obesity, but it's not going to be metabolic syndrome or heart disease or, stuff like that. But it will, it depends. As I said, where is what type of fat is it? Is it visceral fat or subcutaneous? If you've got very little, there are people, I mean, I've actually seen where they are really metabolically healthy and they're overweight, but it's all they've got basically bugger all visceral fat or liver fat or organ fat or anything like that. But if you've got massive amount of fat in the muscles and in the organs and in the viscera around the organs and all that type of visceral fat, that's what's going to kill you. That's what's going to harm you. That's what's going to damage your muscles as well. So that's the problem. That sort of fat, and that usually is driven by things like fructose. So honey that Salad Boy promotes and other people, that's where the problem lies. And I've looked at all sorts of studies. I showed you last time the 8-week study where they had people on, either fructose or glucose, and it was shit what they were being eaten. But the reality is that one started getting healthier metabolically and the other didn't, got worse. So it's quite clear what is driving, and it's fructose, whether it's coming from high fructose corn syrup, whether it's coming from agave syrup, whether it's coming from, honey, refined sugar, you probably even gnawing on sugar cane you're not going to get much, but it's still fructose. Things like that. That's where the issue is, really. It's the fructose that is driving. It always has been. So that's your mechanism. So it's what you're eating and the type of adiposity that you have. So the composition of your adiposity, so to speak. Hope that sort of explained it for you. Not all fat is the same, so to speak. And not all leanness is the same. More happy birthdays. How do you cook the calamari? I've only ever had it breaded and deep fried. The way we do it is basically we'll tenderize it. So you tenderize it and all that. There's a number of ways you can do it. If you go to some of the actual, sometimes I fry it. Sometimes I bake it, like barbecue it and stuff like that. There's a number of different ways you can actually do it. I'll put a link. I'll actually put a link of a good Greek site that actually has a number of calamari dishes and the way they do them. So I'll try to remember that, and that's probably the best way to actually get real recipes. I mean, I could tell you things you probably, I'd be a bit inaccurate because I'm thinking, yes. So yeah, I can provide a bit of that for you. Okay, vegetards claim that plants have phytonutrients. I call them phytopoisons that are unique and are just useless, but are just useless chemicals. Whereas meat have zoonutrients like taurine, exactly, which are quite useful but dismissed as non-essential. Exactly. It's just crazy. Our bodies are made of fats and proteins and cholesterol. That's what our bodies are made of, and some of the sugar that is required in the body can be produced by gluconeogenesis as a demand-driven thing for the body, both for red blood cells and also glycans, and what they call is what they call is to basically glycosylate. You've probably heard some of the people, especially in the paleo movement, use the term to glycosylate proteins. Well, glycosylation of proteins is adding sugar molecules onto proteins. like we've got the glycans for signaling purposes, or the pericellular matrix, where the hairline fractures on top have got these sugar molecules. That is exactly the same thing, and then that can actually take up sulfur to basically create that negative charge, and also nitric oxide synthesis. So all these things have their purpose, but you don't need to get it from food, the sugar part. Very little do we need. And on the other hand, the phytochemicals and all that, they have a hormetic effect. But as I said to you guys earlier, we get exposed nowadays, compared to our ancestors or tribal people, to far too much hormesis. We're overloaded with hormesis. Take the chemicals that we use, that are in our cleaning agents, or our carpets, or our furniture, or basically just in the air. Living in a city, it's polluted with a lot of hydrocarbons and stuff like that floating in the air and getting into our nostrils and all that. That's all hormesis. These are all hormetic, little stresses, little poisons, but too much is a problem. And so it's more important nowadays, and this is why people notice a lot of relief and better health when they lower the threshold of hormesis, and they just get what they get from their environment, and eat species appropriate foods to get the nutrient dense foods we need to basically regulate our system, to create the enzymes to function properly, to be able to clear out some of these toxins as well that are coming in our environment. You sit behind a car, you're ingesting a lot of bloody hydrocarbons and a lot of other chemicals. You want hormesis? Just sit behind a car. It's cheaper. I mean, I know I'm being facetious, but it's nonsense to basically say we need people living thousands of years ago in an idyllic environment. They probably need a bit of hormesis down then when somebody got a bit sick, to basically give them a plant compound, the wise man, or the shaman, the witch doctor, as we would have been known in a caricature way nowadays. But the shaman basically gave them plant compounds to induce intracellular antioxidants, to generate a hormetic effect, so the body would heal. They didn't know why it causes things. What do you think most compounds are? They're either inhibiting certain pathways. Most compounds that are used in pharmaceuticals, they're in a concentrated form. They come from plants. We know they've got a lot of side effects. You tell me one medicine out there that doesn't have side effects, So to argue that plant compounds that are no different than drug compounds that are just more concentrated, beneficial or take more, that's just nonsense. And you're right, Luke. There's a lot of bloody nonsense out there about plant compounds. People are getting far too much, and they're actually making themselves sicker. So if you want to go out into a forest environment, which is an ideal environment, a clean environment, and all that, and take some of these hormetic stresses, it's probably okay in that sort of environment. If you're living in a city or in a much more polluted environment like we do live nowadays, we get enough hormesis. Fucking hell, we just need good nutrition to be able to create the proteins and the enzymes to basically clear and provide sufficient, things like sulfur and sufficient, basically, nutrients to basically detox this sort of shit out, because the liver needs nutrients to basically run its detoxification pathways. It can't do it without the nutrients, and those nutrients are in animal foods. They're called taurine, choline, these sort of things. They're not called basically some phyto piece of shit. Anyway, Tefano invented live streams. Why are you copying him? Oh, is he going to charge me copyright for that as well? Fuck me. Is that a new one? Didn't realize he's basically bagging out. Yes, I think live streaming has been around for a bit longer than even YouTube. So I doubt it, but he will claim everything, I suspect. He must have gone back in a time machine. That's how he was able to get copyright. Damn, why didn't I think of that? Yeah, that's true. We're all ignorant, the rest of us. I'm the biggest ignoramus. You should know that. Got a mixed bag of seafood, octopus, crabs, mussels. Does anyone have a good seafood soup or something? I'll try and find something, a Greek type recipe, and I'll post that as well with the other one. There's a couple of good ones that are around. Thanks, nurse. Thank you. Frank would most like to have the best recipes as well. Oh, that's true. Yes, yes. Well, he's probably lucky because his parents have an Italian ancestry, and Italy does have a rich, sort of food culture to sort of, and even, and we're not only talking about plants here, but also, a lot of like cured meats and stuff like that, antipasto, which is what they start their meals with, the Italians. So, so he's got a bit of culinary, you could say. I sort of learned a few things from my parents like he did as well. So it's, it doesn't surprise me in that regard, but I wouldn't call him a chef, even though he thinks he may be. But, I think the only thing that I actually did, I have used of his, and that was the New Yorker steak that he actually, the style that he actually did it. I actually saw it first time on his channel, which was basically, pounding in and actually toweling in the salt and pepper in a certain proportion that he actually recommends on both sides, and then cooking it to a couple of minutes on either side. And he had a special, like a real nice sort of small grill type thing that you could actually get a real good finish. So that was very helpful for me. So I do appreciate that, and I did thank him at the time. So yeah, I mean, we all hope that Frank basically comes back to the carnivore tribe, so to speak, and and stops warring with us. So I'm the first person, like Bart and many others, to welcome him back. I mean, we'll joke about him and all that. I mean, he jokes with us and has a go at us as well. So let's put it that way. We're not as nasty about it. We just do it in a comical way, in a humorous way. He sort of tends to be a bit more, let's say, polemic, a bit more, making all sorts of accusations about us, which, it's not a good thing for the community in that regard. It just helps the Church of Anorexia Vegana, to use, they've weaponized him against the rest of us, and he should take a look at that and realize, should I be behaving like this? In the carnival community, we've got disagreements on a number of things, So, I mean, a lot of the stuff, like, I still subscribe to Paul Saladino, and I still support him, So don't get me wrong, but I am critical of some of his thinking on honey and on animal-derived PUFA. The seed oil-derived PUFA, plant-based PUFA, I agree with him completely. He's right on that. But to then extend that to animal-based is, he's drawing, and he actually has said even in a number of his that it's a hypothesis of his. He believes it. He's got no proof for it, because there is no proof for it. There is no study out there with a one that can actually prove definitively causal link between animal PUFA and problems. He just believes that there is a strong association and correlation, but that's all it is. He knows it, but that's the argument point that he's putting out there. And I've actually disproven that quite clearly. I've shown rats just eating bacon, which is cured meats, which everybody bags. The cured meats, salted meats are going to are the worst thing because they're processed meats. are the worst. And here it was given to a rat with a poison, and the rat was being protected more than anything else. So that just blew that whole argument out the door. There's your basically paradox, like the French paradox, all these other paradoxes. It just basically disproves your hypothesis completely. I don't have to argue anymore. I can show a one that basically disproves that complete argument. He has not demonstrated a one. He's just hypothesizing. So, I've actually won the argument. It's simple as that. I don't have to argue the argument. I just have to point to that study and go, you've lost, I've won, move on. Anyway, next. He bet he would, but I'd eat the whole frozen bag before I'd ask that bipolar shit. Strong words from Shell. Yeah. Definitely a Scorpio. Probably is. Probably the wrong hormetic stress, but yes. Oh, does he? Oh, that explains a lot of things. That he's got he's over hormeased himself. Hormeased or horm. No, don't go down that fast. I was just going to go really to sick levels. Sorry. He does. What's wrong with you, Alex? He does own everything on copywriting. Don't you realize that? I'm just waiting for him to send me the bill. Yes, I'm sure I've heard Harry say, we need a good Frank. Yes, we do. We do. I've always said that. Hopefully he'll come back. He'll realize it. He'll grow out of this infantile sort of stage in his life and realize that, you don't have to agree with everything that people say in the community. You don't have to. We're all going to have slightly nuance. I mean, there's a few things that with Stephanie, keto person, even though I love her to death, I subscribe to her. She's a really nice lady. I've got a lot of respect for her. But I think she's getting too wound up about the copper issue. And I've already discussed it. And I've already shown that there's those MT proteins that basically can bind these minerals and properly regulate them. As long as you're getting enough cysteine and histidine, which we do in our animal foods, it's a non-issue. It's usually when you take supplements and you create these overload issues and all these imbalances. So that's where the problem lies with people. So, and also, I mean, she basically says, oh, you've got to eat your liver. And I'm going, well, some people don't like liver. So you've got to give them an alternative. Pork has a 1 to 2.5 ratio, unlike beef that has a 1 to 32 ratio. So the ratios are only important if you've got the right aminos and enough of these proteins that basically bind these minerals and properly regulate them. So it's a non-issue. But if you're worried about the ratios, which you shouldn't be, but if you're worried on a carnivore diet, then basically consider things like, which is quite easy, squid, octopus. Octopus is a 1 to 4. Squid is a 1 to 3 or something around there. There's, a number of other foods that I've actually mentioned in that list. If you go to the things like ham and stuff like that, cured meats from pork-derived cured meats, also a 1 to 2.5. So, and I have a number of cured meats, and I love pork as well. So there's not a difficult way of actually getting a good balance between copper and zinc if you want to. So it's eat more mussels. Mussels have got more copper. There you go. and balance them out with oysters. So there's all sorts of foods we can actually get to basically balance or add additional nutrition of these minerals. At the end of the day, what the body will do is if we give it too much, it'll just excrete them, get rid of them. Yeah, and that's what it does. It's only when you don't have enough of the proteins that are regulating the homeostasis, that's when you get into problems. These problems are not, it's only when people eat very little protein, they are sort of doing these therapeutic things, or people are eating sad diets or eating which are 70% plant-based or plant-based. That's when these ratios become important between copper and zinc and all this, because you're not generating, you've got free floating copper, iron, zinc, and all that through your body, which is not being properly regulated and properly, you're not achieving proper homeostasis because you don't have enough of the proteins, the cysteine and the histidine proteins to basically, and also you need a bit of selenium as well to basically deal with these sort of issues, to basically bind them properly and to regulate them properly. That's where the problem lies. And as I've said to people, doing a steak-only diet, and this is, I do agree with Stephanie on this, is very short-sighted. You should mix it up with a whole lot of other animal foods. You'll get a better nutritional balance in that regard. You are. Dusters for you, Kitty. Oh, plenty of fans here. Both good and bad fans. Bad fans. The better ones. I know they're going to troll me after. I realize that, but you know what? I've been trolling them as well. I've been giving T1 and T2 a bit of a trolling match. So they've gone quiet on me. They realize, God, that Harry. If he really gets started, you can't stop him. He's unrelenting. Yes, always. I'm glad you guys are pretty funny about it and water off a duck's back, as they say, so you don't take things too serious. I don't. So it's probably the only way to survive YouTube, by not taking it too serious. At the end of the day, if I fuck up, I will own up to it. And if somebody else fucks up, I'll make sure that you guys are aware that they have, and bring it to your attention. I mean, I'm not against any of these characters. They've got their place. They've contributed to the community. They've put out good information that have helped a lot of people. Don't get me wrong. But at the same time, they're putting out some information which financially seems to benefit them, but doesn't really help the rest of us. It's stuff that probably won't necessarily, some of this stuff is not going to necessarily harm us in any severe way, but it's probably going to harm more our hip pocket. Our wallet, so to speak. It'll diminish the amount of money in our wallet for no good reason when we're getting no real benefit. And please, T1 and T2, do not sit behind vehicles for hours and hours to get additional hormesis, okay? You'll end up poisoning yourselves and dropping dead. Okay. Is it true the so-called love handles, fat deposits, are heavily associated with insulin secretion? Love handles, well, all adipose tissue accumulation, insulin is involved. All the growth factors are involved. So, some level of insulin resistance exists for them to be persistent. So you may lose weight elsewhere and they may persist. There's probably some underlying insulin resistance in that regard. But at the same time, love handles are probably less of a problem because they're not visceral fat. So they're not going to cause you harm. If your visceral fat is low, and you know how to export visceral fat, I've talked about it countless occasions. Choline. Where do we find choline? We find it in some seafood. We find it in liver. In organ meats generally. We find it in eggs. So, So that's how we export fat out. That's how we get it out. But the sort of the love handle stuff, that really, you sort of have to. I mean, there's easier ways of actually making yourself more insulin sensitive by doing a 3-day fast. That will make you insulin sensitive, and then you can switch to more appropriate foods after that. So there are ways of actually breaking that sort of insulin insensitivity, as they call it. It's just hard for a lot of people to do, to do those sort of fasts. I know, like, I'm a foodie and I enjoy food, and my longest fast has only been 6 days, and I don't recommend chronic long fasts. They can be too catabolic. But 3-day fasts, 3-4-day fasts, usually your metabolic rate keeps on going up to 3 days and 3.5 days, and then starts coming off. It won't go down to really low. No, that only happens when you basically calorie restrict. Calorie restriction causes lower. It lowers a lot of functions in your body. Generally also your metabolic rate. So that's a different thing altogether. And that's usually because you've got sugar in the system and you've got some level of insulin resistance. You can't tap into this is what happens sometimes. People come off a SAD diet or a vegan diet, all that. They don't have all the enzymatic pathways set up for fat adaptation or fat mobilization. And what happens is they start eating shitloads of lean meat, which is sort of rapid starvation. They get diarrhea because they're not getting enough fat. And on top of that, they also start using the proteins as glucose, as a source of glucose. And so they continue supporting those glycolytic pathways. They get all sorts of imbalances and all that, and they feel like shit. But that's what happened to Carnival Yogi. When she actually increased her fat, it happens to women more than men. You got to increase your fat. That goes away. So, and where I would disagree with Stephanie would be on fasting. Fasting is a really good way of resetting your insulin sensitivity, much faster than anything else, much faster than keto or anything, is to reset really fast. At the end of the day, yes, does it downregulate some of your hormonal systems and stuff like that? Yes. It's only 3 or 4 days. Who gives a shit? You reset, then you go back to eating species appropriate. Things reset themselves again. You're furnishing additional fats and proteins and stuff like that. Yep, you'll rebuild those hormones and all that. 3 days isn't going to cause you a hormonal issue. So let's get over it in that regard. Otherwise, our ancestors would be in a pickle of a thing if they were basically, not being able to eat. And there is a tribe in South America that basically only eats every 3rd day. And they are a multi-generational population that have never had any health problems or anything like that. They are very extremely healthy because of the autophagy effect. But when on the 3rd day, they really feast. They go to town. They really get a lot of the calories that they've missed out on the other days. But they do it every 3 days, so feast, famine, that sort of thing. But, different populations do a whole lot of things. So I always say to people, what may work for you may be slightly different. But I think that the quickest way of actually getting insulin sensitive is through a fast, especially a 3-day fast. Usually resets things quite well. So, yeah, thanks, Lukey, for that. Oh, so I just noticed Kate. Yep, yeah, it was a good question. It allowed me to actually cover this point as well. Ooh. Gotta go. See you, Daniel. See you, mate. Good to see you here anyway. Take care. Every minor inconvenience that can happen is happening. Hopefully nothing huge. Yep. Look, I hope there are things that are happening, get sorted out for you. Some fans here, some fans. Training my abs and obliques, decent it, but my sides are not remotely toned. Oh well, you have to work on them. I'll send you. I will email you a link of there's this site with bodybuilders that actually, but the old books of the bodybuilders, some of the techniques that they used. I mean, there's one guy that actually used to have a technique that used to enlarge his chest really well. A whole lot. There's a certain types of routines and all that. I mean, I know about them, but I don't want to do specific things. I want to cover more the dietary type hacks that people can do when they're doing these things, rather than focus on actual, because there's plenty of sites out there. And I think why reinvent the wheel when there's good people out there doing it already? So I will cover that channel, but I'll send you the link. But I will cover it on mine at some point and just show some of the techniques and all that. The people that are interested in that can go and look. Yep. Anyway, you also, I think I did mention too, you also have to check some of your genetics, because if you don't have the genetics for it, you may really struggle. I do want to do a video eventually of myostatin inhibition, to actually, for people like yourself who are struggling to put on muscle mass, to basically suppress myostatin. And it tends to be people that have got the genes for being more like a marathon runner than a bodybuilder. They tend to basically have more myostatin, so they can't really build muscle very easily. They struggle because their genetics prevent them. But there are hacks to basically, and I don't want to put it out yet until I do my video. Sorry. But when I do my video, it will cover these points, but also it will cover how to protect your heart, because heart is a muscle and that can grow as well. So, and guess what the wonderful thing that actually helps protect the heart from this sort of growth? Taurine. Yes, but it's a higher dose than normal that you have to take when you're doing this inhibition. Actually, 3 grams should be mandatory for people who do marathons, because they get left ventricular growth, and that's why they're dropping dead. A lot of them are, carb loading and not getting enough taurine. So, and because of the carb loading, they burn through more taurine that they biosynthesize. That is why they get this left part of the left ventricular of the heart that grows, and as it grows, it actually means that they really get eventually very low sort of heart rate, and they're very susceptible to this sort of dying while they're exercising quite severely. So, but taurine should be mandatory, 3 grams for people doing that. Track and field should be 3 grams. Should be for younger kids, it should be 1 gram. For teenagers, 2 grams. And for older people, it should be 3 grams. And I don't give a shit what people say. That's what it should be, because that's what the science actually shows. That's coming up where I'll show the science in that regard. So, yes, there are solutions for everything, guys. It's just people haven't bothered looking into them sufficiently. Great news, everyone. There's an international class suit action against COVID IC, whatever, on its way. Okay. Sounds interesting. I mean, look, we've got solutions. That was probably my rant earlier about the vitamin D as a better option than continually destroying our economies. Here in Texas, it's illegal to not use a mask, as I wear one, but I don't believe it helps. Look, if you don't have the ailment, no, it doesn't. It doesn't protect you. It just doesn't. But if you've got it, if you get it, so to speak, you're protecting others, because you're releasing less viral load, in a sense. So if you've got symptoms, you should be wearing one to protect others around you, which is a thing. But the reality is, everybody's going to get it eventually, like the common cold and flu and all that. And really, ultimately, guys, it's upping your vitamin D. So just a reminder, the study in Spain, it was 20,000 IUs for 3 days. Then the remaining 10 days, it was 10,000 IUs, but that was intravenous. So double that. So it's 40, 20. So think, if I'm taking a supplement, it's going to be 40,000 IUs and basically 20,000 IUs for the remaining 10 days. So work out how much you need, and that's what you take as an adult. For a younger person, they probably don't have a problem unless they've got underlying conditions. Then it's half that. And for an older person, you may even a really old person, you may even consider up to 50,000 IUs for those 3 first days. Actually, if they are fat, quite obese or stuff like that, I would consider even up to 100,000 IUs for 3 days, because simply, you're not going to make a lot of traction if there's a lot of adiposity that's going to suck up a lot of that fat soluble vitamin. So yes, just keep that in mind. But for the average build, with a bit of fat, a bit of overweight, probably what I mentioned earlier, but a morbidly really obese individual in your family, yep, they would have to take that higher doses of 100,000 IUs plus. Okay, I forgot to watch chat while listening to Harry. Am I that mesmerizing? Good to know. That's an option, as long as that person isn't sick. Well, there's going to be a lot of shake-up, let's put it that way, but with politicians around the world. People tend to have short memories, and eventually, once the big issues are out of the way, people are going to go, "My life's shit," so they're going to get angry. Understandable. Now that it's getting chilly here, the mask is actually kind of nice. Look, it can be actually, even though we've had in Tasmania 68 days with nothing, zero. On a cold night, I actually did use a scarf type in a similar way. I've used it, and it is, because I sometimes go for late night walks as well. Yeah, I know. I've got crazy things. I need to get my hormesis somehow. And the thing is, it can sort of be kind to the lungs. Let's put it that way. Yeah, exactly. I don't personally think unless you've got something and you can potentially give it to other people. If somebody's got it and they're next to you, you're still going to get it. If they give you a big viral load, it can actually penetrate the actual mask. So you're still going to get a viral load. Where the issue is if let's say you've got the actual ailment and you've got the mask on, and then you basically, let's say, sneeze, that sneeze isn't going to get very far. That's the thing. So you're not going to shoot out. Your mask will be quite wet, and the sneeze will be basically contained closer to you, but it's not going to basically get, some droplets will get out, but very fine. And let's say that's actually, for those people getting those droplets, probably going to be a good thing. If they're relatively healthy, they'll take a few of those and they'll get really good immunity very quickly in that regard. It's the big viral load. And that's why doctors and nurses are more susceptible to death, because they are actually continually exposed to big viral loads. And that's what kills you in the end, especially if you're unhealthy as well. So yes, it's always nuanced and a bit more complicated. Saving money. Just think of it. You're saving money. Don't have to put any makeup on. Masks are cheaper. Okay, there are a few opening. Look, I can understand. People are fucking angry. People are, have built over decades their livelihood, and the small peanuts that the government's throwing at them isn't really helping. Be cheaper to basically just give everybody in a nursing home, antivirals and a whole lot of vitamin D. It would have been cheaper that way. Anyway. Saw someone in a full-on gas mask today. They looked ridiculous. They would have. Gas mask. Yeah, some people are weird. Gas mask. What do they think? It's the First World War in the trenches. God almighty. How crazy. Yeah. Yes. Weird. I think people who own gas masks are just constantly looking for an excuse to wear it out. Possibly. Oh, you were disappointed nobody turned into a zombie. Oh, well, shit happens. Maybe the next one. Oh, well, wear my welding helmet before I wear a mask. Yes. I should go over to my dad's place and get his welding helmet as well and put it on. He used to be a Boilermaker welder before he got into small business. Yes, I should. G'day. Same here. Have a gas mask in the car just in case. Oh, mate. Send Lukey a photo so he can post it up on the Discord. And then he'll post it here. We can get a few laughs. Oops. What am I doing? Full face motorbike helmet is more comfy and easy. Yes. Definitely is. Actually, that's what I didn't retrieve from my sister. I just realised that because I gave her a motorbike helmet. Anyway, don't worry. She gave me back I've got one of those, which has got like it's a jacket which has got like a gas cylinder that just blows up and becomes like a bit like the cars that have got the sort of protective you know what I mean. So it's a similar thing. So when you come off it, sort of you detach from the bike, it just blows up and becomes like a protective cushion so you don't get injured. Anyway. Don't know why I went into that. Don't know what happened to that helmet. Need to find out. Oh. Oh, shit. I've lost a couple of questions. Sorry, guys. StreamYard just basically moved me on too fast. I thought I was going at a good pace to try and get through them all. But, yeah. StreamYard fucked me. Anyway, shit happens. Sorry. If there was a question prior to the this one, please just pop it in, please, and I'll answer it. Oops. Okay, Buck, how are you, mate? Whole eggs, mayo is great anyway. There's barely any whites. Yep, good stuff. I'm making ice cream with erythritol. Sorry, bros. Enjoy. I like ice cream as well, but I've limited to one day. I was under the impression MSM could promote toxin absorption. No, it's just it's sulfur. It's just another form of sulfur. So, we're depleted of sulfur. Our soils are depleted of sulfur. Most people don't eat enough animal foods to get enough sulfur-rich amino acids. Probably the only sulfur sources for a lot of the vegetarian out there is probably garlic and onions. Their only real source, and it's not as the bioavailability of the sort of composition of it isn't the same as the animal form is anyway. We get far more. So, and most of the modern day vegans don't even eat those foods. They pretty much have jettisoned all that food. They pretty much now just consume all these fake meats and fake crap and stuff like that, which is just devoid of all these nutrients anyway. I never thought of using whole eggs, being used to not eating chicken egg whites due to avidine. Yep, biotin deficiency. Guess you wouldn't have to worry with a quail eggs. I have no idea whether they have avidine or not, the quail eggs. That'd be interesting. Somebody look it up. Whether they do. They may not. So yes, I tend to, if I've ever consumed raw eggs, it's been the actual yolks, not the whites. I've cooked the whites after, and I've done them I've used them like in a soup type thing, where you can actually beat the whites and then basically put some cream in the actual soup later. But first you beat the whites, then you put just spoonfuls of warm water in the whites in order to, so it doesn't actually, you don't want it clumping together. You want it still remaining as becoming creamy, and just slowly coming to that temperature so it doesn't clump. And then you put it into the soup because it's at the same temperature, and you put cream in and mix it up, and it becomes a very creamy, so you can cook it like that, and you can use the whites as a good protein, sort of a soupy protein type thing. So that's another way of cooking the whites and having raw yolks. So I do that sometimes. I think my record of downing yolks, what was it? Can't remember now. I think it was either, was it could have been either 16. I sort of lost count in a sense. I know it sounds awful, but I sort of lost count. I should have been, I think it was either 16 or 17 that I actually ingested that day. But after the last one, I'm going, I've had enough. I was planning to try and get to 24, but it didn't happen. A bit like that old geezer that was doing 25 eggs a day. And so I sort of and then I sort of gave up. I said, oh, I've had enough. And it was sort of in that regard. But, like beef tartare, sort of, I'll have a bit of that. So, and I'll put a bit of egg yolk on that. I usually put 2 egg yolks. I prefer more egg. And I'll salt and pepper it heavily and mix it in. I enjoy that. But, that's probably the only highest level of like yolks that I've actually consumed as raw. But don't throw the whites out. Keep the whites and do the soup thing. But just remember, the water, warmish water, as you bring it in. So, just from your pot, just slowly put it in the, have the bowl next to, and just bring it in, just slowly, just warm it up and just beat it. And so you want it to basically, it creates a bit like a thick cream. That's the word that I'm trying to find, a thick type cream thing. And then you add some cream in, which after you've actually put it back in and stirred it, you add some cream to sort of give it sort of the, because you've taken the yolks out, you want to give it that sort of beautiful flavor that you get. You know what I mean? Anyway. Hope that works. I do not want to have a separate quail yolk from whites. Too tiny. Okay. Look, I'm not even going to comment on these eggs or from these, because I don't have enough knowledge when it comes to these sources, exactly any issues associated with them. So, I'll look into them, but out of curiosity, but I'm not going to make a comment since I don't know enough about them. I wonder if there's a fructose in vulture bees' honey. What? All honey has fructose. All honey has fructose because it's in the flower part. That's the flower part is what actually produces a lot of the fruits. So that's where you basically have the highest concentration of deuterium and the highest concentration of fructose as well. So there can't be any honey that is devoid of fructose. It may have different levels. It may vary. That's a possibility, which I don't know enough about this specific type to be able to comment. But no, you don't need honey. If I say this the wrong way, it's going to come across the wrong way. I was just about to say, you're sweet enough. See, I did it. No, you're not. They aren't regular bees. What are they? Trans bees. Only if you've got a sulfur deficiency and you're dealing with, that's when you need it. Yes. In that regard. Egg whites, all sorts of good stuff too, through a bit of everything in. Maybe it won't kill you. As long as you're getting enough biotin in your diet, it shouldn't. So, yeah, at the end of the day, as long as you're getting, because biotin you'll find in liver as well and other things, other animal food. So, non-binary bees. Nice one. Science unbiased. God almighty. Pretty sure visceral fat is on the don't eat list in the Old Testament. Don't know. But I would say that yes. I think there's a gel of that sort as well. I think there's actually, yeah, they have it in gel form and stuff like that. I don't know enough about it. I've heard some people in the naturopathic world saying that it's not good. it's got some harmful effects, but I don't know enough about it to be able to really, do you really need it? If you're getting good diet and stuff like that, good nutrition, do you need that sort of stuff? I don't think so. Okay. Are they observational epidemiological ones or are they clinical? It's very important. So are they basically just studies that basically asking people, do you consume quail eggs? Because some people that are going to be consuming quail eggs, they're going to be consuming a whole lot of other good foods as well, not only quail eggs. So is it the other confounding variables that are making the quail eggs look better in the data? So if it's an observational study, ignore it. Doesn't mean it's, the food is bad. It's an animal food. It's good. It's got a whole lot of good nutrition, but let's not elevate it to sainthood, in that regard. We do need good clinical studies that actually show quite clear people doing exactly the same foods, identical, isocaloric in every way, the same nutrients in a clinical setting, and then one group gets a placebo quail egg and the other one gets a real quail egg. And, it's basically put in a way presented where people don't know what they're having. Then you can find out whether there's a benefit or not. So no, we don't really have that sort of good science in terms of for any eggs out there. So it's all epidemiological, associational. So it suggests yes, but it's beyond proof in that regard. So let's be very careful. Let's not speculate just because it's an animal food. Okay, look, I'll look into it. I'll look into it. Yeah, I don't know enough about DMSO to really. I don't want to comment on something that I don't know about. So I would have to look into it. It's not going to. It'll probably happen next month because it's not a high priority for me. There's a whole lot of other things that I'm trying to prioritize at the moment, which are more important to most of people. But it's something interesting that I'll look into, and people don't need to worry about sulfur, MSM. I've covered that in previous videos on a number of occasions. So a non-issue for DMSO, I don't know enough, and I will do something eventually to cover that since, animal docs use DMSO on joint injuries in animals, dogs, horses, not for use in humans in the USA per regulating bodies, works the same, but weird side effects is a garlic taste in the mouth. Okay, interesting. So it does have a sulfur component to it. It may actually be good, if it's used for animals and stuff like that. I usually find, like veterinary stuff, if it works in one mammal, why wouldn't it work in another mammal? So, I'd be surprised that if it's that didn't have any issues, but I don't know enough about it to comment in any authoritative way, so to speak, where I've looked at the science and said, yep, I can find good reasons for it, or no, there are issues or side effects or this or that, and give a real good deep explanation about it. I prefer doing that from a position of knowledge, not a position of ignorance, which currently, when it comes to DMSO, I'm ignorant. For people who can't stomach the eggs raw, mix it in to milk, masks the real. Yeah, that can work as well. I've done stuff, milk egg smoothies. Yep, that works. Baptist Ladies cookbook would probably have some good seafood recipes. Yes, it would. I forgot about that. Good for bringing it up. The link is in one of my live streams. If you remember, I did actually show the book and I showed a link to it. And it does have some really good seafood recipes. Yeah. Good one. Thank you, T2. Yeah. Bowerbird to the rescue. Thanks, mate. I don't think MSM is dangerous. DMSO is dangerous because it's a carrier of other substances. Just about all patch-based lotion medicines have DMSO in them. Okay. Yeah. Look, as I said, I need to do a bit of my own research before I form an opinion. I was wrong. I thought it was dangerous because it came from plants, as I read. Yeah. Look, there's plenty of sulfur compounds. Yep. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for the link, putting it in there for people. Like, Shell can take a look at it, or other people that are interested in that regard. So yeah, look, just because something's from plants, it doesn't mean that it's basically problematic. Plants and animals incorporate sulfur into their bodies. So the nice thing about the one that I usually get was the Jarrow one, the MSM. It's just got the pure sulfur, nothing else, minus all the other shit. So it's less of an issue. But animals incorporate sulfur in a similar way. They use it. We use far more than plants for detoxification and stuff like that. So yeah, it's important that we get it in there. The problem with DMSO is that if you mix them with a toxin and it gets on the skin, it helps absorb the toxin into your body. Okay, so really it may be the preparation as well, or combinations and stuff like that. Okay, so if you're going to use it, and that would go also for the animals as well. It wouldn't only be for humans usage, but also for animals as a gel. There's going to be different companies that produce different types with better quality. So maybe it's not the actual DMSO, but it's actually the other stuff in the different preparations. So as I said, I need to sort of look into it before I can really. Homeopathic doesn't have side effects, and actually no effects for that matter. Okay. Yeah, look, I don't even know whether it's a homeopathic remedy or what it is. I'm completely and utterly ignorant about it. I got the book on my computer and have the original. Okay, you've got it. Good, that's good. Cheryl's happy. She's got access to it as well, because I can't remember which live stream I actually showed. It was towards the end of the live stream, and I actually put a link, but yeah, save Shell a lot of searching for it. So yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah, so people can use that because there's some of these old traditional recipes are really good, because in North America, if we go back 100 years ago, people were consuming 3 times the seafood we consume today. 3 times the seafood. So a lot of, and a lot of butter, far more butter than even the Europeans in North America, especially in the US at the time. So there's a lot of recipes, old traditional recipes, American recipes, that a lot of people have, forgotten. Their whole families have forgotten. They've moved on because of the food culture that's the modern food industrial culture that actually has literally destroyed the old traditional American, food culture that was far more healthier for people. And a lot of people lost a lot of that knowledge, that cultural knowledge, which the corporates ripped out of the country. It's time for Americans to basically, take back their heritage, their lost heritage, in terms of nutrition, and look back at that sort of literature and use those recipes and stuff like that to, and share it with your friends. I would share it far and wide, because that's going to, we talk about carnivory here. You want to promote more carnivory into the population, share something like that. It's like a carnival Trojan horse, because you're sharing something. It's a Baptist women, I mean, it's nothing controversial, but it opens up people's eyes to go, oh, these people have been saying back then 100 years ago, people were eating more plants. And when we moved away from, when we increased eating more animals, it's because they always go back to the sort of, they're very cynical. They go to the Second World War when there were a lot of food rationing. There wasn't a lot of food around. Great Depression, a lot of poverty, and they go from there onwards to go, oh, look at the rise that's actually happened. They ignore the seed oils and the sugars and all the other stuff that's rising at the same time, causing a lot of these problems, plus tobacco consumption to add to boot. They ignore all that. Not that I think tobacco actually is as deleterious if you're on a species appropriate diet. You can look at the Japanese, you can look at basically the Inuit who from childhood consume tobacco, and they don't have the cancer rates or lung cancer rates that people have. So diet does play a role in making you more vulnerable, because you've got less detoxification capacity if you're on a poorer diet. That's another confounding variable which isn't taken into consideration when they look at these observational studies. But I'm not basically promoting tobacco smoking, guys. It's not a healthy thing for your lungs long term, and putting good nutrition in to basically circumvent the damaging effects of these compounds isn't a smart strategy either for longevity. So I wouldn't be doing that. But it sort of explains some of these differences in between countries and all that. But these are all factors. The key drivers are the seed oils and the sugars, the refined sugars. And people need to reclaim back some of their traditions, and they will be healthier for them. And it's much easier to promote this sort of stuff in wider amongst family members and say, look, this is what we ate. This is the old recipe book. Check it out. Cook like people were cooking 100 years, and they will look at that and they'll go, shit, these people were eating a lot of animal products. Some of them may, start questioning their modern day and say, well, we don't eat as much as they used to eat. Have we been sold a whole lot of bullshit? So you may be able to get to them with another angle. Yes. Thanks for reminding me, Bowbird. Sometimes too many other things. In your last video, if I'm not mistaken, you singled out main mushrooms. I never learnt why. Look, probably mushrooms are the least egregious. It is a fungi, and as a fungi, it has far less anti-nutrients. It's less problematic. That's what I meant, compared to plants. So I wasn't basically elevating lion's mane as something, into a sort of a glorified sort of aerified sort of level of greatness. No, I was just basically saying it was less egregious in terms of anti-nutrients and other issues compared to all the other compounds. I was doing a differentiation. So if you want to have lion's mane, there are less issues, and there are some small benefits, not massive, but some minor benefits. And on a nutritional level, it's better than plants. Mushrooms, even though some people don't like them. I know Bart hates them. I do consume them on the Saturday when my mate makes his gorgonzola soup sauce with mushrooms. I don't consume a lot. I usually tell him to put more sauce and less mushrooms on there. Even fucking this week, he actually put more mushrooms. I only had probably about a quarter of them. The rest were just left there. I'm going, bit of a waste, mate, bit of a waste. Anyway, but he actually just had cooked too many. He threw too many in. They were cheap. When we went to the supermarket, and he go, oh, yeah, I'll buy extra. And I'll go, I'm not going to eat them. I just like a few mushrooms and some of the creamy flavor that they give off. They change the flavor slightly of the actual cheese cream mixture of gorgonzola and cream. But it's the least egregious in that regard. So I would say that, and that was my sort of position. But yeah, most people like to focus on other things. Well, they might help if they were dehydrated. What was that? Oh, that was on some of the other stuff. Anyway, move on. You're a Freemason, Harry. Am I? Oh, good to know. According to Frank, I suspect. I actually told him, this is how ridiculous it is. I told him that the actual Freemasons, when I was actually president of the Greek community down in Hobart, it was the actual local Freemasons with some rich bastards that actually ganged up and overthrew me, got rid of me, and actually put a Freemason in as the new president. And I actually left the committee, so I gave up my position as a director, because it's run like a company. It's a directorship. So I gave up my directorships and I had to unregister from that company. So yes, and I actually told him that basically they actually had done me over. They screwed me over. I mean, why would I join that? I'm too much of a maverick. As I said, Bart is a maverick. I'm a maverick. People like Sean Baker are mavericks. We're not the type of people that sort of follow the party line. These people are very much follow the line, their own rituals and stuff like that, and manipulate people. Their whole purpose is to basically put their members in a whole lot of positions to control. Yeah, they're no different than the other group. But yes, good attempt from Frank in that regard. I mean, how ridiculous is that? And he knows the story. I told him ages ago. He knows the fucking story, how they did me over. He's just an idiot. Fucking hell. What an idiot. Anyway, yes. Definitely not into one of those groups. Yes. Not Illuminati either. Not any of the other things. Yes, I'm Greek Orthodox and we're against these groups anyway. If you're Greek Orthodox and you're part of these organizations, I can tell you, you're going straight to hell. Let me put it that way. So these organizations are basically, they've got nothing to do with Christianity. They are basically very much opposed to Christianity. And I'll be quite blunt, we actually had I was basically trying to improve my relationships with the Archdiocese. These people were basically fomenting problems and trying to get me to get rid of the priest. That's how nasty they were, and the priest was a bit pissed off, with them and the community to some extent at the time. And the only president that ever brought the priest back to a number of these functions where he only voluntarily had to come, it wasn't part of his contractual requirement, he'd come to me because he basically said to me that basically he's the only person that I respect. People know that my community, you want to ask people in my community, they know quite well who took me out. And, that basically I was with the Archdiocese against the other group that came in from Adelaide, which were the people that split off. And basically the Freemason guy that took over, the presidency at the time, he's passed away now, but he's the guy that actually brought the other and caused a division and got rid of our other priest and brought this other guy from Adelaide. Since then, the community has changed, and there was pressure on the community for him to basically rejoin the Archdiocese, which he did in that regard. But our church does monitor people like this, and if they do detect these people, they get rid of them. They push them out. They force them out of the church because they can't be trusted. They're dangerous to orthodoxy, and so we've got very zero tolerance to these sort of characters. So definitely not in that regard. Yes, I wouldn't be associated. My soul is more important than earthly type, power or whatever. Let's put it that way. The original book sounds interesting. Mm. Ooh, seafood mixed soup is something I want to know about. Yes. Check that. Also, look, try the thing that I actually said earlier, making a soup and how to basically put the whites in and combine it with cream and all that. You'll really enjoy that as well. Believe me. But yeah, that book is really good. It's got really some great recipes. Yeah. Look, I will post, but I'll post later, unfortunately, because right after this live stream, I'm going for my walk and all that. And so it'll be when I get back, then I'll do it. So it won't be immediate, but eventually I'll post and I'll pin it. So just come back and you'll find the sort of information. So anyway, homeopathy was a cure for COVID for sure. Oh yeah, definitely. It worked on me. Ooh. Gave me that weird look. Yep, definitely. Frankie is lost as it gets. He isn't getting better. Oh, okay. Oh well. Well, I can only hope he reverses from that rabbit hole that he's gone down. Yes. Probably next he'll be competing with vegan games on OnlyFans. God almighty. Another degenerate, basically prostituting out his wife. Fucking hell, sick. Officially a master chef, is he? Oh, there's a video of him on the show. Oh yeah, he did go on there. He actually told me. He basically lost it, because he was under so much pressure. And he actually told me he had stuff that he was doing at home and stuff like that. And there was a lot of on his plate and family-wise, and he was so stressed out, he just couldn't manage it. And he really lost it. He said, I can do better than that. And, so, but, at the end of the day, sort of that sort of approach, public type approach, is important. I have never seen it. So he chatted to me about it once, but I've never actually seen it. So I can't comment. But, apparently he sort of really didn't present well. Don't know all the details. But, yes. But didn't win it. So, gah. What are my thoughts on coffee before taking oneself in? Depends. If you've got, I've got genetics, which I can actually detox 4 times faster. It includes alcohol because it goes down the same pathway. The actual, I better get those Lukey attachments as well. Missing those. It's all hard work from Lukey. And the next one, it's a bit on the larger side. And I'll have to zoom out on that because that's a bit too large. There it is. Okay. Let me show this. He did, Alex. You should know that. How can you claim otherwise? What is wrong with you, girl? Anyway, we move on. Thanks, Loki. Oops. Do I have that effect on you guys? Do you guys turn into penguins? God. No wonder you don't want to show yourself on the webs. Okay. So if that effect on you, turn you into penguins. Yes. That's a worry. Let me just push that up. So, Dracula and garlic. You sure about that? Superman and Harry StreamYard. Oh, fuck. My nemesis. Nice one, mate. Nice one. God. Yes, we all have our crosses to bear, as they say. God. In the US, a lot of bacon has added sodium, ascorbate. Can't tolerate much. Yeah. Do they actually put vitamin C in the actual? God almighty. What a load of crap. Yeah. Luckily, look, down here we can actually get cured bacon. I've shown you guys before the smoked bacon that I get. It's cured, salt cured, and smoked, and it's really nice. So that's the sort of food that I actually get. But it's unfortunate, Ascorbic. Oh God, what else are they putting in? Sugar, ascorbic acid, and oh God, rat poison next. Fuck's sake. Just crazy, The land of processed junk. Unfortunately, you guys need to basically start pushing back, start getting some of those old recipe books out to your relatives, try to encourage them to push back. It's the only way. They're trying to push us to, this plant-based kibble, junk food 2.0. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to encourage the middle class, the woke out there to basically embrace the kibble. That's what's happening. And it's really fake bacon and fake this and whatever. It's, more seed oils and more sugar and more crap, and just adding vitamin C or adding vitamin E or whatever in a damaged form or whatever. It's not going to fix the problem, It'll just create more oxalate. Fuck me. God, what can one say? Be careful not to spill it on the sheets. The coffee. Yes. I forgot about the coffee. Sorry, I didn't actually cover the coffee. Well, yeah, that's one thing. So detoxification, how well can you handle it? I can have late coffee and go to bed. I'm out like that, have normal sleep, get up in the morning, fine. It's still, it does have a lot of oxalate. It does have oxalate, but very little. If you're getting enough, dairy products in, it's going to chelate and take it out. You'll just lose a bit of calcium. That's about it. It's not a big issue, but I wouldn't consider it a good habit. Once now and then, probably okay, but on a regular basis, probably not a good idea for anyone, even if you've got, try and keep it at different hours. Yes, you should be careful that he doesn't do that. Exactly. But that goes for anything. Milk in the evening or whatever. Food in bed. It's not a good idea. Food and bed. It's not a good combo. I'll have a bit on the side with that with that bacon. Yes. Can become messy. Now, dousing one's partner with cream is a different story altogether. Anyway, we won't get into that. Claiming meat causes scar. Yeah, there's plenty of them out there. Yeah, just check out my previous video. I will do a little video on that specific subject showing a cancer agent being given to a rat and just eating bacon and basically being protective. It's a mammal and it's protective, but that's without any of the other shit. So you've got no confounding. Nobody can say, it was the seed oils, it was the sugar, it was all these other, that are in the rat chow. which confound all the studies. This was pure, just the chow, other meats, and the bacon was protective. So it just blows away, because they say the bacon, things like the bacon, is the worst in causing this sort of thing. So BS. And there is not one study, all these observational studies, when you do clinical studies, they show the opposite. Funny that. When you do randomized control studies and clinical studies, they show the complete opposite. Isn't that funny? So all these observational epidemiological studies that don't even achieve a 2, that means an odds ratio of 2. They don't even achieve 2. They're always below 2. So they're below 100%. 2 is not even sufficient. You have to be at like 200%. You have to be at a 3 to basically even merit actually a hypothesis to be investigated as a clinical study. You know, when you look at tobacco, it's, 20, 30 odds ratio, thousands of percent in terms of epidemiology. And it also fulfills the Bradford Hill criteria in epidemiology, which means that it's dose dependent. The higher the actual incidence. So if you take more poison, you're going to get more sicker or die, at a greater rate. So that's it. It doesn't even fulfill that. It fails and all that. And it's just, again, more of these junk studies put out by veg-tarded academics that are just trying to maintain academic tenure and use emotive words to get it out into the media, because that's how they promote their university. They go, oh, Harvard University came out with this. Stanford University came out with this. This university came out with this. We're doing research, really good research. Bullshit. It's basically to improve the academic rating with doing more shit studies. It's all about numbers, not about quality. And it's the same thing. I mean, in the past, you go back to the 30s and 40s and 50s, most academics would have probably done, maybe published 3, some 2, some maybe 4 or 5 studies in their whole life. These arseholes are doing double or triple that in 1 year. That should tell you something. All these high food frequency questionnaires, giving people that are completely ignorant about statistics and science questionnaires to fill out and tell them, what did you eat in the last year? As if these people would have any idea to answer correctly. And so you get shit in, crap out. That's basically it. That's why. And also they cheat. They actually use the ORAC value. So plants that have got polyphenols, we know what they are, toxins that induce hormetic effects. They've got a lot of polyphenols, a lot of these compounds. They will get a high rating. The higher the polyphenols, the higher the rating. Even though they can prove no basic biological necessity for polyphenols. I go to them. You show me one fucking study which actually shows a direct mechanistic connection between a polyphenol and a biological process in a human. There's not one study that will ever show that. Zero. So basically, it's just junk. Made up for academic tenure and university ratings, so they can charge more to their students who basically go, oh, this university has a high rating because it's doing more research. But it's junk. Most true scientists in the past, what they did was they worked in labs. They tried to disprove their own hypotheses. They spent a decade or 2 trying to disprove their hypothesis. And once they were happy that what they were putting forward was really strong, research, then they would publish. That's why they did very little publishing, because they were in the labs doing real work, trying to work out how things worked and why things work that way, doing mechanistic studies, trying to work out, the vitamins and minerals and a whole lot of other compounds and stuff like that. They did actually real good research. The current crop do just shit. They're pathetic. It's the reason why Bart Kay left academia, because he was just disgusted with the poor science. They basically, They basically just work for the pharmaceutical industry. They just create crap, and the food industry create crap research just to basically push the medicine and the kibble onto the population. It's just crap. They've got no clinical studies, and that's why they avoid clinical studies. The same thing with the WHO organization. People that were on the panel said it was just full of vegans and vegetarians that were put there by the food industry, who've got a lot of clout to push these people into those positions through the US government, through the British government, all these different governments that basically the politicians are controlled by these big food lobbyists. And they will push their people into those places, and they'll make these stupid decisions because there's more profit margin on selling kibble than real food. That's the whole story, so it's just junk science. And when some people do stuff which is true science, they find the opposite. You don't have to look at the Stanford study at Stanford University done back in 2005 by Christopher Gartner, who got a lot of stick from Ornish and a number of the other plant-based mafia for doing the study, because he included Atkins and proved that Atkins was better, even though he's plant-based, academic. He's gone back to his garlic studies and a whole lot of other shit that he does now because he got a lot of stick from those people. He was expecting to find... See, this is how deluded these people are. He was expected to find that Atkins was inferior, but found the complete opposite. The same thing happened with this other academic from Harvard that went to Israel on the direct study, did the same thing. 3 months before the study was to commence, they included the Atkins component in. Again, they disproved themselves that, Atkins was superior again. And that was a 2-year study with a 5-year follow-up, and they provide a lot of the food at the Venona nuclear site. So I think it was at the Venona nuclear site, or one of the facilities around that area. So basically, it's just BS. When you do clinical studies and clearly just look at animal foods and take all the confounders out, it looks completely different. And it doesn't surprise me, because the N15 data shows that. When you look at the N15 data of collagen, of bones, of humans going back, and hominins going back millions of years, they show high levels of hyper and super carnivory. Real world data does not lie. But epidemiological researchers, who are basically run by the food industry, the Seventh-day Adventists, and many others, they just make up shit, and play around with statistical stuff to push their narratives. So, I say to people, if you want to listen to that nonsense, you'll end up sick and on a bag full of drugs to basically keep you sort of regulated, unregulated, regulated way. Yes. So, and if you want to check the... If you're not interested in reading the actual study itself, because some people just don't... So that's the actual... And I'll just... That's because I was playing it on here. That's why. Let me just put the link from the time spot. That's the time spot. I'm going to remove that. That's the time spot where they're actually looking. Let me just share for a sec. God almighty. Yeah, I just knocked myself out. Let's try this again. Fuck, man. Oops. Anyway, lost my spot. Let me just put this up. Hold on. Need to unshare for a sec and share with audio. Share with friggin' audio. Okay.
Okay, so having said that, drum roll, this is what we found in our study. Well, you have to look at this because it's up in front of you, but take your eyes away from that just for a minute. This is one of the things we're the most proud of. A year later, we had 80% retention in our study of 311 women, which actually isn't perfect for sure, but it far outdoes anybody else who's ever published this before. They usually have 50%, 60% retention. Sometimes that's at 6 months. This was at 12 months. So we were really pleased. And I have to say, I believe I attribute this to our approach. When the women came in the study, we said, you know, if you're having a hard time on the diet, or if you're not losing weight, we really need you to know that you're not kicked out of the study and you're not bad. It may be that your diet is really, really hard to follow. And the American public wants to know how hard it is to follow. So if you come back, we'll be able to represent that. And if you don't come back, then it'll make your group look better than it really should be. And that'll be misinformation. So somehow I think that message sunk in for a lot of people. So we had women who gained 20 pounds and came back at the end of the year, even though they were supposed to lose weight. Okay, so you can see.
So that's a good thing, because what it means is, unlike some of the other randomized controlled trials, in this trial, there was more compliance. People stayed in the study. And so you don't have this sort of where, like the clinical studies that pharmaceuticals companies do all these prior studies, eliminate the people that have got the problems, and then use that small group of people that genetically have got less problems to push their barrow, so to speak. So at least Christopher did the right thing and basically encouraged these people to stay in. And so the stats were better represented in that regard. Because people will vary the way they apply the diet in that regard. And there'll be genetic differences as well. So the way people may have been to a certain degree more insulin resistant. Could be a whole lot of factors why certain people respond in a certain way. We know a lot of people sometimes come on the carnivore diet, they'll put on weight initially, and then once things normalize their hormones and everything, they'll start losing it. And it can take up to a year. So that's where this study will miss out on some of that stuff. So I suspect if these people were much healthier, the Atkins would have done even better in a sense. So this is really important that people look. I'll just continue. I'll mute myself and continue with the rest, just so you get a bit of a flavor of this.
See, at 6 months, Atkins, actually, these are highly statistically significant. And by the time you get here and you do the appropriate thing, which is to adjust for multiple testing, the only real difference is Atkins versus zone. But my simple take-home message for one is that all three of the other diets were almost identical. And if anything stuck out, it was a lower carb diet. Now picture, this isn't really the Atkins diet as it says in the book. It's higher carbohydrate. And to be honest, it's a Palo Alto Atkins diet. You know, I think it's an educated premenopausal woman in California diet. So I don't think it was all steak and whipped cream like he says, right? Another thing to notice is these women had 30 to 100 pounds to lose. And you can see they were losing 6% of their body weight, 2, 3, 4% of
An important take-home message here as well is that, as he said, that when it came to the 6 months, people were eating much more lower carb. And when it came to basically the 12 months, people sort of started adding more carbs in. And that's why the Atkins sort of starts veering back up closer to the others. It's still better than the others, but it's not as statistically significant at 12 months. And that's because people, started consuming, rather than the very low carbohydrate, they started being, what we would consider not really low carb. But still, even at about, I think it was about, they got back to about 30%. Even at 30%, they were still doing better than the other groups. So that tells you about the superiority of animal foods generally, in that regard.
their body weight. Overall, it wasn't really a big loss on average, but I'm going to show you another slide to show you how variable that was. So you can't say this is fabulous, this is the end of the obesity epidemic, everybody should be on the low-carb diet. It worked a little better, but nobody really lost, on average, none of the...
That's basically opinions from Christopher. We know he's vegetarian, so that's opinions. But the reality is his data actually shows a completely different picture. And we consider the data, not what he's saying.
Diets did fantastically well, which is really what we thought in the beginning. We just didn't have enough data to show it. Okay, so now let me show you some other tweaks to this. So for one thing, losing weight isn't what it's all about. It's your health getting better. So we looked at some other things, and everybody said, oh, on that Atkins diet, you might lose weight, but your health is going to go to hell. Oh, your cholesterol is going to go through the roof, etc. So we compared all the diets for different things. So here's all the things that were statistically significant, and every one of these actually favored Atkins over one or more of the other groups.
So you can see systolic blood pressure, diastolic blood pressure, triglycerides, HDL, LDL, insulin, glucose, favored the Atkins, everything. So at least he's being truthful about that.
There was no group that did better than Atkins in anything.
Did you hear that? There was no group that did better than Atkins in anything. Okay, this is a randomized control. This is not epidemiological. This is not observational like the Ornish diet and all the other shit. This is actually a randomized control. Okay, so this is far superior, done by a vegetard himself. Sir Vegetard from Stanford University, Christopher Gartner.
Not cholesterol, not blood pressure, not insulin, not glucose. Maybe some things we didn't measure, but of the classic risk factors that people were worried about, nothing got worse. They did a little better than the other folks. And then if you compare the other three diets to themselves, there were absolutely no differences, but that makes sense because you can see how they all track.
And the other ones, there's not much difference. Why? When you look at the Zone, Learn, and Ornish diet, because that's a vegetarian diet, what is actually there's the mixed macro diets. So why would they be much different? Yeah, some has got more plant, a bias towards more plant foods, and other slightly towards more animal foods or stuff like that, like the zone. But there's not going to be much difference because still they're probably engaging at some level the Randall cycle, and they're still mixed macros. So why would they be any different? They're better than the standard diet, which is, basically Randall cycle on steroids, but they still, this is the important thing. These are considered, when we look at the zone, learn, and Ornish, they're considered to be in every single study that we do. When we put the vegetarian diet, the vegan diet, the learn diet, which is the official, dietary sort of dietetics, what they promote. All these other ones, the zone diet was quite popular in that sort of period of time, 15 years ago in particular. Probably about 20 years ago was really when its popularity started. All those basically, actually a bit earlier than that, sorry. It went a bit further back. I think it was in the 80s or 90s for a period of time. There was a period anyway, it sort of fluctuated, came into fashion twice. But yeah, don't quote me. But the thing is, it was the ones that people were talking about and quite interested about and stuff like that. And what did they actually notice? What was quite clear. They noticed that these mixed macros, and we know the Randall cycle, we've killed it to death. And you guys are well informed. They're very similar, all of them. And this is a low carbohydrate diet, not to the level of our low carbohydrates. And we know that there are other studies that Finney and Volker have done that have demonstrated even superior results compared to these based on, much lower carbohydrate, more carnivorous style, ketogenic type diets and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's a non-contest. It's what I'm trying to say. The contest has been won in terms of good science. The problem is we've got a lot of junk science, epidemiological, observational crap and questionnaire craps that are still being promoted through the media, through all these organizations, because it serves a narrative. And that's what we need to remember. Yeah, see you, y'all. Thanks for being here. Take care and enjoy the recipes. So that's the important. I'll just continue a bit.
Tracked for weight. Right? Now, I can't actually say, going back one slide, did they do better because of the diet or because they lost a little more weight? I don't know. I can't really tease that apart. And it's kind of a stupid question, because if it helps you lose more weight and you do better because you lost more weight, that should be part of the answer.
Well, that is a bit of a stupid thing anyway, because at the end of the day, we know that people that are on a low carbohydrate diet, some of them that do not immediately lose a lot of weight, whether they're doing fasting or low carb. We've seen Jason Fung and many others who have done basically research and have quite clearly showed that the biomarkers improve before even the weight comes off. So the diet is definitely doing something superior to the others. But anyway, I expect this sort of bullshit coming from, to create these sort of, is it this? Is it the diet or the weight loss? Sort of bullshit coming. Weight loss does help, don't get me wrong, but there is superiority you can have without weight loss initially and still have improvements in the biomarkers. We know this. There's plenty of stuff in the literature.
But there are people who want to know, what if I lost exactly the same amount of weight on that diet and it was a different diet? Would I still do better? It is a good question, but I can't answer it because the study wasn't set out that way. They lost different amounts of weight. Okay, so no differences among the other diets.
Go back 2 slides. Not that one. This one. The HDL cholesterol versus Ornish. Okay, does that mean that the Atkins or the Ornish did better?
No, Atkins did better. On a low carbohydrate diet, your triglycerides go down and your HDLs go up. We actually have people show up at preventive cardiology who've been doing McDougall or Ornish. On a really high carbohydrate diet, it raises your triglycerides and lowers your HDL. And we say, can you please put some more nuts and seeds and avocados and real salad dressing in your diet? And they cringe because they worked so hard to get all that fat out of their diet. But we tell them that's the good unsaturated fat, and they do it, and they come back, and their triglycerides are back down, and their HDLs are back up.
So there is just admitted that the traditional Ornish diet, where people are doing low fat and all that, have worse triglycerides and worse HDL, and he actually has to encourage them to go and eat some fat, you know, from avocados. I mean, this is, which is keto-friendly foods, that he encourages them to eat keto-friendly foods like avocados and certain nuts like, you know, macadamia nuts and stuff like that, because I know he's actually spoken about macadamia nuts in other cuts, because he's, you know, olive oil, macadamia nuts, all the monounsaturated, they go crazy about that because they still hate even though his data shows something different, they still fucking hate the saturated stuff anyway. But that's because they're so brainwashed in the way they've been brought up anyway. But he admitted, you know, people that are on the Ornish diet, that do strictly Ornish and are really, you know, doing it strict, get higher triglycerides and lower HDL. They get sicker. And he has to force them to do more keto-friendly foods, fats, in order to get better. You know, I mean, he's literally like put a knife into their whole argument, ripped them a new arsehole without realizing, and then he talks all this other nonsense basically to make it look not as bad. You know, it's just, what a joke.
Now, that actually tends to happen mostly for people who are insulin resistant, which is something I'm going to bring up in just a little bit. So it's not everybody. That doesn't happen to everyone. Some people...
He says that happens to people. Well, anybody in a high carbohydrate diet is going to have elevated insulin. At some point, your pancreas is going to pack it in and you're going to become insulin resistant. Just because you're younger, eating a whole lot of shit, and you're insulin sensitive still, you haven't damaged your pancreas sufficiently, that doesn't mean that that's a good thing. It just means that you just haven't packed it in to basically have the insulin resistant. When you've got the insulin resistance because you've done more damage to your pancreas, well, obviously, you know, it's going to be much harder, and the sort of the biomarkers are even going to be worse. But what's causing it? We know what's causing it. It's all those fucking carbs. You're not going to get it from the low carb. Everything goes right. Triglycerides come down, as he says. All these sort of things improve when you put more fat in. So, yes, I mean, it's sort of all this double talk. They play around. They go, oh, you know, it's this or that. But what's driving these things? You know, they don't want to, you know, so they throw these in a very reductionist, in a very like isolated way. Oh, the insulin resistance. Yeah, but what's driving that? You know, that defeats their argument. But they don't, you know, they like putting things into compartments and separating them like that is one way of sort of not making their argument seem as bad. You know, it's a crappy way.
Do a low-fat diet, all right. But for a lot of people, a low-fat diet makes their triglycerides and their HDL worse. It makes...
Long-term, it will make everybody's fucking triglycerides and HDL worse. It's just a matter of time. You know, admit it, veg-tard.
Their LDL particles smaller, not bigger, which is worse.
It makes your LDL particles the more atherogenic. He admits that as well. He's giving us a lot of ammo, isn't he, guys? A lot of ammo.
So there are some metabolic downsides to a low-fat, really high-carb diet.
So there are a lot of downsides to a low-fat, high-carb diet. You know, I mean, this is the person we should be basically, even though he's veg-tarded, this is the person we should basically using when we fight the veg-tarded out there and say, well, your own people are basically saying that. He's an academic, you know, one of your own who's basically literally tearing an arsehole into yours, you know. You know, it's like taking candy from a baby.
Patients randomized to the groups?
Yes, it was a completely...
No selection as to what diet they would follow?
Nope. In fact, when they sat in the room and when I did my big orientation, I told them to look at the diet, pick the one that they liked the least, and assume that that was the one they were going to get. Because that's how life works out sometimes, right? And I said, if you're not happy with that, you can't sign up for the study. You have to be prepared to do the one you like the least, even if it's one you already tried and it didn't work for you.
Completely randomized, as you said. You know, no selection bias.
Although that in itself was an interesting anecdote. We had several women who did say that, and then they got in the study, and they went through the whole book, and they sheepishly came up afterwards and said, you know, I told you I was on this diet before, but I never really read the book, and I never understood it, and now I do. And it's really much more impressive than I thought.
So there you go. You basically, he admits that he made sure that these people follow the diet really strict and accordance to the rules of the book, the way it's actually presented. So where most people, you know, they go, you know, it's like a lot of people out there, they don't, you know, they do certain diets, but they don't really do them. They don't really understand the nuanced parts or whatever. These guys had dietitians in there explaining every single detail of the Atkins diet, every single detail of the Ornish diet, all these things. These people did it as best as anyone can do it. Not merely just reading the book, that they read the book. They also had advisors to advise them exactly how to do it. So you can't get more gold-plated than that. They were told to do it exactly, and they did it exactly. They sort of got off the wagon later on, after the 6 months, and that's where we see, you know, the Atkins sort of arm sort of, you know, coming back to the others because they added more carbs back. But, you know, that's people free living out there that basically are less disciplined than we are. But, you know, at the end of the day, just I can't sit here if I basically have a binge. Let's say a month, I go on and start eating a whole lot of candy and a whole lot of things. I can't turn around and say, you know, my biomarkers have gone to shit. I've put on a bit of weight. It must be the carnivore diet. No, it's my fucking binging of, you know, sugary things like, you know, ice cream and a whole lot of other shit for a couple of weeks. That's really what caused it, not the other meat that I was eating. You know, I was engaging the Randall cycle and stuff like that. You know, I mean, it's not as if I'm ignorant of these things. Some of these people are. You know, they understood, they were told how to do the diet, but they don't understand biochemistry or the Randall cycle, all these other things. And so quite easily they would start putting cheats in. You know what people are like. We do it ourselves to some extent. So that's the reality. You can't accuse the diet of our cheating behavior or their cheating behavior for those changes after the 6 months towards the end of the year. So keep that in mind always. You know, as I say to people, I present the science and, you know, demystify the bullshit. But if I do something wrong and I don't get the benefit, you know, that doesn't nullify the science. It's just basically I haven't been compliant because I'm human and sometimes do cheat and do the wrong thing. But that's my humanity. It's not, I'm in a, you know, very difficult food environment, unlike my ancestors that just didn't have access to a supermarket, you know. So, but the thing is, let's not say that, oh, the diet isn't working for me. No, you aren't complying because you've got some underlying addictions or other psychological things that you can't manage well is the reason. So let's be honest with ourselves and stop blaming the wrong thing. We need to use science to elucidate or to actually inform us whether something works or not. And this study actually shows quite clearly what works and what doesn't.
So a lot of these people buy the books but don't read the whole thing or don't get it. So we made sure, that's one of the reasons we had them read the whole book with a dietitian, to make sure they at least got all the principles.
Yeah, I have a question. It seems like with this, from what I've heard so far with the studies that you mentioned, the people who were participating, they would either meet however many times a week or once a month or whatever, they read the books, and it would be, they'd report back and they'd
see trouble.
The weighing process and all that. But it seems like it would be somewhat, no matter what plan they went under, it would seem like they would be under a somewhat uncontrolled study, because to be in a fully controlled study, you have to be in a fully controlled environment. Sure, your food intake would be monitored, your activities would be monitored. So it seems like.
Oh, it's a great point. Can I follow up on that? So you really kind of.
He's sort of talking, that guy's actually saying, well, you need a clinical study, you need people to be monitored and all that. That's true. If you really want to do it's the sort of science me and Bart talk about, is but you'd never get it through an ethics committee. You can't lock people up for 20, 30 years or whatever, or more. You know, I would basically like these sort of studies to be done on prisoners, if you know what I mean, because you can actually, you've locked them up. You know, people that are, 20 years to life, you can basically lock them up and basically say, well, for 20 years, we're going to do research on these people. And you'd get really good science because you've got them locked up and they will be eating specific foods. You'll randomize the prisons, populations, and you'll separate them on the different diets. And you can do it in different prisons as well. So you can actually get some additional information. So, and it's going to be not as costly because at the end of the day, you're still feeding them and you still would have to feed them anyway, food over those years. You know, the only where your cost it will be is a bit on teaching the people how to cook some of these foods and stuff like that. That's where, but you'd actually get really good science with prisoners rather than free living people, and at least, you know, be able to say for 20, 30 years or whatever, these are the results of these diets. I suspect you'd get a lot of riots in the ones with the people that were eating vegan, because I'd go insane. La la la, crazy. Anyway, I will leave it at that. We'll stop it there. If people want to go, they can go and check it out and look at the video right through from the beginning to the end to get a bit of an understanding. He talks a lot of shit. Oh, is it this or is it that, or is it the monounsaturated? Are they using olive oil or stuff like that? You know, this sort of all these misdirects. At the end of the day, the original book, this is not the Atkins book, the new Atkins book, which was developed by, in more recent times. So this is the original book. It's bacon, it's steak and eggs and bacon and eggs. Okay. This is basically creme de la creme. You know, this is really the pinnacle of carnivory, because that's how Atkins promoted it. You know, it's, you know, bacon, get up in the morning and have bacon and eggs. He wasn't promoting vegetables, I can tell you. That's why they hated him so much, because he was basically telling people to basically eat shitloads of animal foods, you know. So these people weren't completely compliant because they were putting a whole lot of other plant foods into their diet. Not all of them, but, you know, the ones that actually were more closer to doing it in the proper way. But, you know, Christopher has to bring up all this other modern day bullshit about olive oil and whatever else, because that you know, it's like they're grasping at straws, trying to find things to basically explain why this is the case and why it's not. You know, it's all again the same sort of just it drives you up the wall in that regard. Anyway, yes. Hello, Kate. Good to see you. I hope this has been entertaining. I've been trying to entertain you guys today, and, you know, and all that. I'm going to really quick. Yeah, that's also Sally Fallon and the Weston A. Price, the oiling of America. Really, you know, I saw that years ago, about less than a decade ago, after I had my cardiovascular issues. And luckily it was actually on at the time, because after having done a year of statins and, you know, not really knowing what I was doing and stuff like that, and then came across, you know, Sally Fallon and realized how they had poisoned us all those years and stuff like that, it's when I go, oh shit. And I started looking into the sort of more traditional, more indigenous and stuff like that, and traditions, and went to a high-fat Mediterranean diet that my father was doing with, you know, shitloads of olive oil and shit like that, and dairy fats. And so slowly transitioned to the low carb and on from there until I'm here now to the more carnivorous way of eating. I've even got Dad to sort of switch away from vegetables more, you know, so from his veggie garden type activities. So yeah, interesting, you know. So he's seen me, how I've improved from where I was, and you know, he feels better eating a bit like this, and he feels stronger than what he used to. His muscles have built up and all that, and he's going, maybe Harry's right about this, and so he's making the shift as well. What do Greeks know about the Trojan horses? plenty, mate. Plenty. Do you need a horse? A wooden horse? I can provide you one. G'day, John. Good to see you, mate. Good to see you. Ian. Ah, yes, you need a bit of fungus in you, don't you? Oops. Yeah, as I said, I do not know enough. Yeah, MSM sulfur, they're pretty much clean, pharmaceutical grade. You have to get a pharmaceutical grade so it doesn't have any of the other shit. That's true. And DMSO, I don't know enough. I will look into it. I definitely will. I promise. Yes. So, and I'm 5 minutes away, so I really have to just, because I'll be walking soon, and I have to get my pants on and get myself sorted out. For my dear friend Ling goes, "Where are you?" She sends a message and goes, "Where the fuck are you?" Didn't join the club. My uncle didn't like me because he's easy. Okay. Oh, well, shit happens, you know. So I've had people shun me for similar things and all that, but I'm too free-spirited to basically want to be controlled by those arseholes. So good for you. I know what you mean. Yes, they did put the knife into me. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I'm a carny spy. They pay well, apparently, and you can kill people as well. I did. Thanks, mate. Trying to remember my mind now. Oh, look, I've heard stuff, but there's no real science out there, you know. So there's associational stuff, but no, there's no real in any way. So I don't know where the why this myth persists about the prostate, but yeah, look, I don't know why it persists. There's no real science out there. I've looked and looked, and people have been consuming animal foods for day dot. So you know, there's a lot of associational stuff, but there's no mechanism, you know, demonstrated mechanism. As I say to people, you know, show me a study that shows actual mechanism or actually can demonstrate things. There's a lot of associational stuff. You know, most things like prostate enlargements or, you know, things have to do with breast cancer and stuff like that. If you take a look, what are the drivers of these things? It's estrogen, high levels of estrogen. Meat doesn't drive estrogen. And, even, like hormones in estradiol, estrone that's actually in milk, not estradiol, estrone, is, for a whole, you can have a couple of glasses of milk and just get a couple of nanograms of, estrone. So there's not really much estrogen there anyway. When you're producing thousands, like hundreds of thousands in women and, tens of thousands in men, 53,000, nanograms compared to 6 nanograms. I mean, it's a drop in the ocean. So it's really only carbohydrates. These sort of conditions have only really emerged in now that we're doing 70% plant-based and 30% sort of animal-based foods, which are very much not in their natural state anyway. So, and it's all epidemiology. So, yeah, I mean, so I would say, because I think that's what you're talking about in regards to the prostate. I hope you are. Yeah, there is none. There is none. And when you look at traditional societies that consume a lot of animal products, they have next to zero prostate issues. So it's a modern day high calorie intake type effect of all these growth factors, which is insulin, IGF-1 and stuff like that in a very, and even with breast cancer in a very sort of elevated way. So most issues are in regards to that. Easiest way is to methylate it away. You can balance it out with boron, but to methylate it away, the best way is basically choline, again in animal foods. So, yes. I think that's what you're actually talking about. I hope it is. Harry has probably green skin under, has been on the moon and back. Oh, have I? Oh, great. Oh, yeah, I have. What am I saying? Yeah, I have. I'm an astronaut. Didn't you know? A green astronaut at that. Yeah, they're not bad. Look, I have to say I do like mushrooms. But I do like them in a certain way, like in a sauce and stuff like that. But I don't need excessive amounts. I'll have small amounts, and it's just gives it a good flavour. Are they species appropriate? Probably not. Are they the health thing that people tout them as being? Not really. Can they have some negatives potentially? So there's many other things that also have negatives. As a fellow Mediterranean, do you have any insights into G6? We're about, ask me next time, or put a comment and I'll answer it, because that would be a long conversation. Problematic? No, that's just regular sort of stuff. None of the science shows that. I'm just going really quick through, and the reason for that is because I'm about to shut everything down because I have to go. I've got 8 minutes to get ready and be out there waiting for Ling, and not to piss her off. Anyway, quail eggs, glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase. Yep. Deficiencies. Yep. Areas of malaria issues. Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And that's exactly it. You just have to eat more of those sort of foods, animal foods, which improves that whole pathway. Yep. Very well said. There's more or less your answer. And it is where malaria is an issue. That's true. This in parts of Africa and in parts of Greece, especially the islands. Not on the mainland so much. It's on the islands primarily. And that's true. It's true. But as I said, there's a few other biohacks. I'll be meaning to do a video at some stage on that and just show all the genetic SNPs that are involved and some biohacks that you can do. But animal foods do improve things in that way. Just oxalate pork, kibble, exactly. That's true. I've actually forgot about fava beans. Yeah, it's not really good for those sort of people. It can be really unhealthy, causing them a lot of problems. Yes, exactly. Yes. Very nasty sort of stuff. Thanks for that. Covering all those points really well. You've saved me having to do a video. Just look at some of this stuff. Science Unbiased is really on the money. And I will pretty much got to the bottom. Yep, I have to fucking go because I need to put my pants on and all that sort of stuff. Take a piss, a quick piss before I get moving. Otherwise, I'll be basically, keeping it tight. Or have to go into the bushes somewhere. Okay. Thanks, guys, for being here. Hope you enjoyed today's live stream. We covered a few points and all that sort of stuff. Do check on my discussion page that I've got on my channel. If you go to the discussion, there's the myths and falsehoods of veganism, and there's a lot of information and links and science covering a lot of the points that usually people get throw at you guys. And so you can actually point them to that. I don't mind if you copy and paste it, that whole thing under your name anywhere. Just plagiarize it. That's fine. Use the points to argue, with science against these buffoons out there to help our cause. I won't. That would be, yes. I would probably upset some of my neighbors. What the fuck? Exactly. See you guys next week. I may do an impromptu little thing on through the week. I haven't decided. I may do something. I'll probably use Zoom and see how that goes. I'm trying to test Zoom because I don't have enough hours on StreamYard, which is a problem, which means that I can't basically, I'm trying to get to the stage where I'm doing this live stream and then I'm doing a Euro-Asian one later on and doing it every week. So I'm covering a lot of my different subscribers in different time zones. And that's what I'm trying to do now. And so I'm going to test and see how Zoom may be used for the night shift, the Eurasian one, and I'll use basically the StreamYard thing for the other one, which is the North American and other parts of the non-Eurasian part of the world. So that's sort of my focus, of trying to actually maximize my coverage around the world. So I'm going to be working on trying to get that, and I will get the gallbladder thing. That'll be out on either Monday or Tuesday, one of the two. Hopefully, when I actually do it, I don't have to do any post-production stuff, that it actually sounds fine and it doesn't have any issues with it. And then I'll do that. And so it'll either be Monday or Tuesday, and then there'll be a follow one the day after, because I'll tape both. The other one will be a much smaller one. It'll just be basically what to take and how to take and stuff like that. And it will basically cover this point, because a lot of people have issues with gallbladder. And it needs to be clarified, because currently just people are looking at the downstream sort of thing of supplementing to basically, but it's not really fixing the problem. It's just basically ameliorating the symptoms with all these sort of, bile salts and stuff like that. So yeah, we need to fix the problem, not ameliorate it in a naturopathic way. Anyway, see you guys. Take care. We will chat again and next week, and maybe through the week when I do a bit of a test. It'll be a short one. It won't be a long one. It'll just be a test drive to make sure that everything's working properly. And I will appreciate those who jump on to help me with the testing. But do take care of yourselves, look after your families, and be good to each other, and keep the pressure on the vegtards. Use the information and go after them, guys. Anyway, see yous. Have a nice weekend, the remainder of it, and take care.